Sandra all the time is here with the cold hard truth. She's the ears and the eyes for me and you. Every day, everyone want to hear from Sandra. And every time on the air, she's getting better. Tell your sister, tell your brother, tell your mama. Call Sandra in the morning and in the evening. They always calling Sandra. And when they start fighting, they calling Sandra.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth. Welcome to another episode with more truth telling, more problem solving, and of course, more tea spilling than ever before. Sit back, students, grab your tea and turn up the volume because class is now in session. Call in at 936-2626 because your voice matters. Share your opinion on issues that matter the most to you. All right. Good morning, K-Man. How's everybody doing? Can everybody hear me okay this morning? Buenos dias. We're going to go ahead and get it here now. Give me one quick second. Morning, Lucky Body says Emily was amazing at last night's debate. We're going to talk about it. Irvelyn is here. Marshall, Robert Ebanks in the house. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go through and grab all of the show links so I can send these out to everyone. So give me 1 second. Happy Wednesday, by the way. Today is indeed Hump Day Wednesday. So if you've not yet joined the channel, by all means, please do so. And we are going to get into some of the relevant topics here this morning. My apologies, a little hiccup there, including everything that went down last night. So I don't have a straw this morning for my water. Hold on. All right. I'm going to tell you guys some stuff that's going on outside of the immediate purview. Look at me using a big word this morning. I feel like Jonathan Adam. Jonathan, where you at, honey child? Did you inspire me to use some bigly words? Yes, sir. Let me see here now. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, we like to send it out to some of the groups that I'm in. And I know a lot of them are here for it every single morning. Had a Caymanian in Florida watching yesterday. Big shout out to my Tampa folks. So that's my old stomping ground. So buenos dias. And I would like to say that, they are tuned in and listening. So yesterday, someone told me that their husband got to listen maybe for the first time. And they said, honey child, he loved the show. He was like, you get him, girl. I said, oh boy. I don't need any encouragement into badness. Trust and believe me. No encouragement needed. All right, let me just fix my lights here and then I can turn the camera on. Everybody's good? Siobhan, you're in class early this morning. So good to see you. Yes, I see you, honey child. I see you. So I did go to the salon yesterday, not for the hair. I just didn't have time to do it all. Ladies, you guys know how it is. You got to break these things up. So the hair is still a hot mess. But I did go and finally get my nails done. Thank you, ladies, for that. Looks a lot better. She did the right thing with my fingers, just cut them all down. And we just did a light, almost like a neutral color because, yeah, I ain't got no time for no real colors right now. And when they start chipping, it's like, ugh. So, yeah, I've never been like a fake nail person. I've only put on nails once in my life, and that was like for a wedding, and then my first wedding, my own wedding, I should say. And yeah, I don't really do fake nails. Like they mess up your own nails. Like I don't know how you ladies can do it. And then I don't like stuff on my fingers because it impacts my ability to type and stuff as well. And I like to be able to type quickity quick, click, 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 click. So I did go and get that done now. I feel like we need to have a poll question here today because you guys are not going to believe this. K-Man is so small and so funny all at the same time. Trivia question, I mean, not poll question, trivia question. You guys ready to win something this morning? How about we throw out a little gift certificate out there to somebody? Okay, so here's the trivia question. Quite ironically, actually, who did Auntie see yesterday at the, oh shoot, did I just close Firefox? Oh, sorry, give me 1 second. I did not mean to close Firefox. Hold on, I accidentally closed it, which means our Instagram folks might be like, huh? Oh gosh, somebody calling me already? Yes, sir. Hold on, let me put in my headsets. I hadn't even finished asking the question yet. Good morning. Oh, I can't hear you. Hold on. Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, there you are. Hi, morning.
Did you get an answer to the question?
Child, I didn't even get the question out before you called.
Oh.
So
well, I know what the answer is.
Okay. Who did I see yesterday?
Auntie.
No.
Did you see him?
No, I saw him, but that's not the question. I mean, that's not the answer. Yes, you fired away a little bit too quick, honey chill.
Okay.
All right. So, yes, I suppose good guess, but that's not who. No, that's not who I saw yesterday. I mean, I saw him, but that's not who I'm looking for. All right. Question. Who did I see yesterday as I was walking out of the salon? Boy, K-Man small for real. OMG. Funny moment. You got to call in. 936-2626 is el teléfono. El número de teléfono. Call in. Who did I see? Good morning, Aliano. Good morning, Miss Gabby. Gabby says, Julie. You know what is so funny? She's going to the same salon as me. And I can't say that I've ever actually seen her in there. So I don't know when she'd be going, but nope, not her. But call in, give yourselves a good guess. Ooh, I think I'm stumping you guys now. All right, let's try it. Good morning, honey child.
Bush.
Sorry, say that again.
Mr. Bush?
No, Lord have mercy. He probably needs to go to the salon. No, not him.
All right.
All right, then.
All right.
I'm not sure he's a salon kind of man. I doubt it. But yeah, some of y'all need to go to the salon. I think it would be good. It would be good for y'all to go to the salon. It helps you. Someone says Juliana Connolly. Nope, wasn't her. Any other guesses? Honey child. Hold on, I'm trying to get my camera. There we go. Who did Auntie see at the salon yesterday? Good morning, Carla.
Morning.
Morning, love.
Yes. Is it Leon's Goldway?
Yes. OMG. I had to laugh when I saw her. When I walked out yesterday and she was sitting right there, I was like, okay then. That was so funny. Yes, I literally opened the door and was leaving, and she was sitting there chatting on the phone. I said, oh my God, what are the chances? I was just talking about her yesterday. And I've never seen her at that salon before. Congratulations. All right, WhatsApp me
Thank you.
your name,
Okay.
and we'll get you sorted out.
Thank you.
All right, honey. Yes, I saw Arlette as I walked out of the salon yesterday, and I just chuckled. I had an internal chuckle. And then I walked to my car, and I parked far because I've been trying to park farther to get more steps in. And so I parked far, and then when I got in the car and I was driving away, I saw her. She moved and came over to the other side so she could be looking at me as I was driving off. I felt like I should have just done a royal wave, like, hey, honey, child, don't worry, Leon ain't going nowhere. So he'll still be driving up and down in your car all day long. Oh my goodness, you guys are naming all these men. Alden, John, Hunter. They probably all need to go to the salon. They all need a spa date to relax themselves. Oh, thank you, Siobhan. She says, love the top. She has an LMFAO moment. Did she see you? Yes, I literally almost walked into her because she was sitting, as I opened the door, there's like a couple little seats right outside, and she was sitting right there, and our eyes met. I think she gave me the glare of, why are you telling people that I'm with this guy who likes to get, whatever with women? I'm like, well, it's the truth. I mean, we're not going to argue about the truth, honey, child. All right. So that was just a little funny moment yesterday in my day. What can you do? All right, folks. Yeah, somebody else guessed it on Facebook, on WhatsApp as well. Enchanted moment. Yeah, right. Actually, Alberto had the answer, but he didn't call in. Alfredo had it, but he didn't call in. He was, you got to call in. Buenos dias to Miss Alba. Fam. How's everybody doing? Miss Dee Dee's here. Nessa. Oh, speaking of Nessa, I saw your boyfriend or fiance. What is it now? Where are you guys at in this whole relationship thing? I saw him on Friday. I think it was Friday. Was he in Miami on Friday? I kind of think I saw him coming out of the airport or on the plane or something. Somewhere about I saw him. I think it was Friday when I was in Miami. Debbie. Oh, she's learning Thai already. Is that how you say the language? I know it's Thailand. Is their language Thai? What is their language called in Thailand? She says Sawadika. Is that how you say it? Sawadika, Sandy. I'm assuming that means good morning. All right. Damaris, and how is it going, Debbie? Thailand, so interesting. Damaris is here, Flora. Happy hump day. Yes, Paul, good morning to you. Jamie says Emily was straight, no filters. Kaboom! Kaboom! Let's talk about the debate last night. So on our topics today, Instagram folks, let your friends know. We're going to be talking about the debate last night briefly. We're going to talk about Miss World, because I've been trying to get to that all week. I have an update for you guys. We are also going to talk about Robert Bodden. There's a video circulating about him that we'll address, and not necessarily in this order. And then Alric is going to join us, and we're going to talk about fiscal mismanagement from the perspective of the government really spending all the money. All right, let's get it. So, yes, I hope everybody's having a great Wednesday. The debate last night, I watched quite a bit of it. It's just called Thai. Okay, all right. Wasn't too sure when I thought about it. Yes, so the debate last night was interesting, much better than the night before. Praise the Lord, hallelujah. Now, tonight is the leader debate. Don't forget, it will actually be simulcasting that on Bobo 103.1 as well. So make sure you tune in for that. Let me get my little tea, honey, chill. And then tonight is it. That's it. The leaders debate and forum, as the chamber calls it, and then it's done. So a couple of things. Number one, Bud Johnson, who I don't really know a whole lot about. I've never heard the man speak in my life. So I was kind of curious as to how he even sounds. And I got to tell you, I wasn't impressed. Sorry, bud. You're one of us. So I'm sure you're used to the cold hard truth from somebody in your life, hopefully. He is Sir Vassal's son, which I didn't even know. I thought it was his grandson. But when I saw his age, he's definitely a mature man. I don't know exactly how old, but I'm guessing he's close to senior retirement age, if not already there. So he's definitely probably 60 or older. So anyway, he didn't impress me. And in fact, he kind of reminded me of he's my age. This is what my cousin's saying. What? Well, he looks older. Not for nothing, but he looks like he's probably at least 10 years older than me. All right. So oh no, he is another brother. I guess that's my age. Yeah, this one looks quite a bit older. So he reminded me of Captain Eugene. They kind of almost look alike in a way, similar mannerisms, kind of the sleepy response, low energy. Yeah, he kind of finally brought it at the end, but by then I was like, dude, too late. So yeah, I wasn't impressed. His answers were all right, but I wasn't. You gotta listen, you gotta bring a little bit of energy too. It's the whole package. Well, I don't know. I feel like during meetings he might be falling asleep, poor thing. So no. If I was in that constituency, Mr. McTaggart, he was a bit more animated, but the problem with him is the PPM has amnesia. So they're talking about all the problems that we're facing and all this sort of thing. And sadly, what they're talking about has me royally confused because it seems to me, yeah, I think my sinuses are acting up, Siobhan. It seems to me that somehow they have forgotten that they've caused a lot of the problems that we're having because they were in for 12, 15 years? And even with the UPM government, because they were constantly trying to undermine the PAT government, when the UPM government took over, that was a PPM government. Now he was talking about the fiscal position of this country and he pulls out the report. Oh, look at this report. Dude, not for nothing, but the PPM government supported the budget. Julie's overspending was supported by you guys. So when you saw her overspending, why did you not say we can't support this budget? This is too much. You know, this $75 million school is too much for Kim and Brack. A $10 million project down in Central is too much. I went down there yesterday, by the way, because I did do an interview with Auntie. You guys are going to love that interview. I really enjoyed talking to him. And I was sitting there looking at this park concept. I mean, so far there's a big concrete thing. I'm like, why? Sometimes simple is better. I don't know what vanity project this is supposed to be, but this is going to be another colossal waste of money, another $10 million down the proverbial drain. And you know it's going to go over budget, as all government projects do. And it just looks dumb so far. Like, I don't see the vision. It's like the revitalization of Georgetown. Who are these people talking about when they undertake the architectural design of these projects? You think the people down in Central, down in the East, are really going to go and utilize this park? Yeah, you know who's going to be utilizing it? The druggies. Who's going to be sitting there shooting up heroin and whatever else they're doing these days, crack and whatever else is the drug of choice. My God. I don't know. This park is for kids. Who's it for? What's the vision? Lord, they rip out trees to then turn around and have to put trees back in. I'm like, anyway, that's going to be another colossal failure. I'm calling it from now. Another colossal waste of money. Someone says a $10 million park next to a roof the house that needs a roof. Oh, not even Dart Park costs $10 million, says this person. We have mastered the art of being stupid when it comes to fiscal responsibility. I can tell you that much. This person says the Flowers Group will benefit. Well, maybe there's something here going on that we have not been told. Not for nothing, but these developers have an in with certain people. You know, and maybe their idea is to what do we call it? Regentrify the entire area. So they're going to purchase all that land and eventually push those people out, and kaboom, they already have a park for their office space. That makes more sense for them. What's being built there does not make any sense for the actual residents of that area. Think about it, folks. It's a little low-key crazy. Okay. Anywho, so as I was sitting there talking to Auntie, I saw a mango tree off in the far corner of my eye, and I thought to myself, ooh, that mango tree looks so good. And I want to do a big shout out to Denny Warren. Good morning, Denny. He said, Sandy, I got some mangoes for you. I said, oh yeah. And I went by and he had not one or two, but like a whole bag full. I got a belly full of mangoes last night. Thank you, Denny. Oh, my little salt and pepper. So delicious. Now listen, those of you who like to cut up mangoes and sell them, I think it's a great idea. You know, I appreciate you making it available. Sometimes it saves me a little work, although I don't mind cutting up my own. I don't mind peeling and cutting up my own mangoes. But look here now. If you're going to do it, you got to do it right. What you guys do is you actually shred the mango to pieces. That's not doing it right. You do these little small slithers. I don't know if are you guys taking like a shredder? That's not how you do it, okay? Let me tell you the perfect way to do it, and this is just my opinion. I'm certainly not a turned mango expert, but this is how I like it. If you're going to do it, because then I guess when you shred it like that, it makes it look like you have more mangoes in the bag when you really don't. Do bigger pieces. So I only cut a mango 4 times. All right. So I cut the big side first. I peel it, cut the big sides, and then the other side, the smaller side, and that's it. You only get 4 pieces. And then, you know, I'm not sitting there gnawing on the seed, because when it's a turned mango, that'll really grate your gums and stuff. So I'm not fooling with that. And that's it. So if you're going to prepare bags, I only want 4 cuts per mango, please. I don't want all these gazillion shreds. All right. Good. Just some little advice for you. Yeah, Caymanians know what I'm talking about. All right. So debate last night. I think the winner, hands down, was Emily. She really, really brought it. She did extremely well. By the way, don't forget, go vote in the poll. It's still open. Yeah, I think she did a fantastic job in terms of that debate last night. Very, very well done. And, you know, her ending was lit, like really good. Remember the last election? Where's Cindy? Is Cindy still around? Well, now she's a civil servant, so, you know, she's quiet. Cindy can't say anything. But those of you who were around last time, remember our red flag, our whole red flag theme for the last election? Well, Emily revised the red flag last night. Did you guys hear her ending? Can somebody clip it for me? I haven't had time to do any clips yet, but the ending was, she ended with a kaboom, a very, very big one. She did well throughout. She is very, very articulate. Now, some of you have criticized her because you said you haven't heard enough from her, you haven't seen her. And I think those are fair comments, because I think she does need to get out there more. But I kind of also think that she is a little bit, I don't know if shy is the right word, but I think she takes a minute to warm up to people. And, you know, you kind of have to get to know her, and then she opens up a bit more, and she's not the person who's going to come and grab the mic from you and really take it, you know? So, you know, I don't know. When you see her interview, I think the one-on-one interview, I think you'll get a sense of kind of more of what her personality is like. But yes, constructive criticism taken on board. Em, get out there more. But she prepared for last night. That was obvious. I think there was one little thing that she did that may be corrected. So we'll wait and see how that folds out. So let's see how they handle that. So somebody says, why is it telling me that I've already voted from this Wi-Fi? That means that somebody in your household probably voted. So if you go on the network, so come off the Wi-Fi, you should be able to vote. So you need to have a little bit of data on your phone. So, everybody's different. Now, so this person says, child, I'm 57 and Bud is at least 8 to 10 years older than me. So he's pushing 70? Wow. Okay, then. That might explain the energy, because not for nothing, but when you reach a certain age, honey child, 8 o'clock is your bedtime. Just saying. Good morning, caller.
Good morning. I was just wondering,
Mhm.
isn't Emily Bud Johnson, isn't Bud Johnson Emily's uncle? I think Emily's for his sister.
I don't know. Is she?
I think so.
Boy, Caymanians, all kind of family, so only God knows. Let's ask the question and find out.
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
listen. Bye.
Thanks, baby. She did tell me who her mama is in the interview, but you guys know me, and I'm really the best at that sort of thing. I don't think so, though. I think her mama from West Bay. No. They're Georgetowners, Sir Vassal, them Georgetowners. She's a West Bayer. Her mom is from West Bay, because she talked about growing up in Boatswain. What? How you say it again? Boatswain Bay. Right, that part there, West Bay. So she's a West Bayer. So I don't think so. And then her dad is American. So that's where the coup comes in. Yes, I'm remembering it now. Dad is from Louisiana. There we go. Somebody just said that. Yeah, I can't remember what she told me her mama name is now, but she's a Bayer for sure. Esther Rivers. Her mom is Esther Rivers. She's a Rivers. Oh, wow. Okay. So somebody said no, M is not related to Bud. All right, there we go. Question asked and answered. Good stuff. So yeah, I think you will find her interview very, very interesting. She has a brother who she mentions that he's autistic, which I thought sometimes our personalities are kind of developed within our core family. Even when I was interviewing Auntie yesterday, he's like the youngest of 6 boys. I had no idea. No girls in the family, all boys. And so, that's interesting because he's more on the quiet, humble side. So everybody's different, not everybody's going to be boisterous and so on. But I do think when you get into politics, you gotta learn how to bring it. It is a bit of a performance job in certain respects, but you have to be authentic. And so this is what I talk about, right? Because some people think, oh, it's just performance. It isn't. You've got to be authentic. And if that's not who Emily is, then she can't be that. She's got to be her. So I think, we have to understand that everybody's different and people bring a different vibe. Even as I'm talking about, Bud was kind of boring me to death last night. He was a little bit droopy. He was like the 7 dwarfs. What's the one that sleeps? What's his name? Droopy, sleepy. That's who he was reminding me of. So that's his personality, I guess. Like I said, I don't know the man. But maybe the politics thing, not really for you, because you gotta, but he kind of, at the end, I don't know if somebody slid him a little caffeine tablet, but he kind of came finally at the end. Mirstar says, fact, Sandy, Emily held it down. Good morning, Marshall. He's in class this morning. Stay focused 365 says, it hurts me to know that most of them couldn't answer a question on beach erosion that the PPM allowed DART to do. Huh? DART didn't do the beach erosion. That was there before DART even bought that property. Let's be clear. Beach erosion does not happen overnight. So, yeah, that dates way back in McKeever's time when planning was allowing people to build a little bit too close. That's what part of the reason. And another part of it is beach erosion is actually a natural phenomena. So it happens all over the world. And it happens in 50, 75, 100-year cycles as well. You know, the earth moves and shifts and does stuff. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to seek to rebuild it and replenish the beach? I think that's probably the only logical option that we have. And then start making setbacks a bit greater. Jamie, good morning. Says Sandy, Roy is guilty of watching all this disaster and staying quiet. We had a labor problem, immigration traffic, and a premier that was absentee and spending double what they were receiving. Well, he was the last premier. Seems like he's forgotten that as well. And not for nothing, but the same people who put us in the dire straits that we are now, the last 2 years, hemorrhaging money, they had a surplus under PAC. As you will remember, and I'll pull up the video, it wasn't much of a surplus, but, you know, that's why Premier Panton was like, whoa, cut back on the spending. And as he said, that's also the reason why he would not approve Juliana O'Connor's request for all of that money. Okay? So, oh, thank you. For her school. And that's another reason why he got kicked out, because, you know, she was like, I want my full money. And he said, I'll give you 25 million, but that's it. And she didn't want just 25 million. She wanted the whole kit and caboodle and then some. So what a hot mess. All right. So let me see here now. Kenneth, YouTuber, sorry, says Kenneth not coming on. All right. So let me talk about Kenneth for a minute. I wasn't planning to, but you asked a question. I'm going to answer it. I don't know what Kenneth is doing. Remember the last time he was on, he promised that he was coming on, and he also promised that he was going to be bringing PPM people on. Remember he told us that? Well, today is April the 9th, and all now that it happened. So I don't know what to tell you. I don't think he's coming on. If I was a betting woman, which you guys know I'm really not, I would say he's not coming on. So he's not keeping his word in terms of that. I guess PPM is pressuring him to toe the party line now that he's deputy lead of the party. They didn't give him that for nothing. Having said that, you know, he has paid for services. He's a paying client, so he's entitled to come on. He paid before the deadline. Now, Kenneth, there are no refunds when you pay and you don't show up. So you're just giving Auntie money for no reason. Might I suggest you try to utilize some of that? Because you can't come to me May 1st and saying, Auntie, I need my money back, because I'm going to be looking at you going, oops. You paid for service. You have every opportunity to come on. You need to let me know when you're coming, because, yeah, there's no refunds from that. So, okay, then. We'll see. Yep. Siobhan, thank you so much, Mama. Marshall says, yes, I was saying the same thing about him looking like Captain Eugene. Sleepy Joe says, Damien, at least Bud found his way off the table. Biden syndrome, says Anthony. Yeah, I mean, if he's like almost 70, like I said, nighttime, you get tired, honey child. He was out of it the entire forum, but came out swinging at the end. Good morning, Miss Barbara. YouTuber says, looking forward to tonight. Yes, I need to see some fireworks. Hi, Delcy and Ben. So, yes, I don't know what was wrong with Roy, but he was not speaking anything called facts. And we can't have you here not speaking facts. Now, let's listen to Emily, her position last night, because I thought the ending, she was strong throughout, and then she sealed the deal with that ending. She came in with a kapow, and I was like, yes, sir. That is some eloquence. Thank you to teacher, for getting me this video. I rename you guys during the show, by the way. A student, no doubt. So give me one quick second here. This person says, anyhow, PPM gets back in, Cayman gets exactly what it deserves. Yep. Honey chill. I mean, that seems to be the one common thread. There's a few people. I see Miss Deborah. What's her name? Deborah Bodden? No, Deborah Broderick. I see. It looks like she's pro PPM because I saw her talking about, oh, you go on through what's his name? From last night, Mr. Matt Taggart. She said, oh, you did a great job. And I'm like, okay, only if you got blinders on, girlfriend. All right, let's go ahead and have a look. Merstar says, too early. It ain't too early. Blair, good morning. Blair says, I think PPM forgets that Parliament is televised. We see what's going on, right? Morning, Alice. Maybe vision for their pockets. Felicia, good morning. Island Pearl says, I beg to differ, Sandy. There are no druggies hanging around in Central, and yes, the people will use it as they used to use it before the renovation. There are no druggies yet, but I think it will be a place for the homeless to sleep instead of building affordable homes that they could sleep inside. And the park will become just like, okay, let me put it this way, Island Pearl. When they did the, now they've redone it like 3 or 4 times, right? Heroes Park, what do we call that area right in front of the court office? They went back and dug up all the, remember there used to be some little seats and benches there. They dug all of that up because they didn't want people sitting. Hear this now. They did not want people sitting in the park because they claimed that it was causing the homeless, the mentally ill, and drug people to come there and have a seat and a bench to sit down. And so that's why they dug it up, because they don't want it to be that friendly. I'm just saying, I'm like, okay. So we'll see. Time will tell with the $10 million park, but I can tell you that that's not value for money. I don't care how you scratch that lotto ticket. $10 million in a park is not value for money. What a hot mess. All right. Let's keep going. Alfreda says, you all ask Emily about her family and you'll be surprised. Her poor sick mother who took care of her and sent her off to school. Emily dashed her away. Sent her off to school, but Emily hasn't been off to school. So I'm not sure that those are facts, Alfredo. I mean, I don't know the woman business like that. But I'm going to talk about some of that, not specific to her because I don't know anything about that. But I do want to talk about people's lives when I get to Robert here in just a second. So let's keep moving quickly. All right, here was the ending from last night with Emily.
For hosting tonight's forum. Good evening, voters of Georgetown East. I hope you have not missed anything tonight. In particular, I hope you have heard the red flags, as I have. Tonight, we have heard a former party leader who you would think would be extremely qualified to make good financial decisions. But we know that it was his proposed government's decisions that put us in the dire straits we are in. That is a red flag. We also know that this same former party leader has welcomed the big spenders that put our country in debt back into his party with open arms. That is a huge red flag. Their mistakes are costing us all. With a cost of living crisis, I refer to as the PPM cost of greed crisis. That is a red flag. Last week, 2 documents were published that, when read together, would make you think the incumbent and his team must be living in some kind of fever dream. One was the pre-election economic and financial update of the Cayman Islands government, and the other was the PPM manifesto. Pretty much promising to do the complete opposite of what they have done for the past 12 years. But make no mistake, This is the people who created the problem, telling you that they are not responsible for the problem, but that they are the solution to the problem. That is a red flag. However, there are more red flags. Tonight, if you closed your eyes and listened, you would have trouble telling some of the opponents apart. And yet they are here, promising change. In fact, this table is full of red flags. Georgetown East, and indeed Grand Cayman and the Cayman Islands, do not be gaslit by the unfit. Choose real and competent change. Change that will not treat you and your future as their plan B or retirement game. There is a Turkish proverb that reads, "The forest was shrinking, but the trees kept voting for the axe was clever, and convinced the trees that because his handle was made of wood, he was one of them." Ladies and gentlemen, no more red flags. No more axes. On April 30th, Georgetown East, vote Emily Decoux of the Caymanian Community Party, and I will make the job of serving you my life's work, humbly and proudly. Thank you, and good night.
Did I miss the part about the proverb? Wait a minute. Did I miss the Turkish proverb? Did she say that bit? Hold on.
Indeed, Grand Cayman and the Cayman Islands, do not be gaslit by the unfit.
I'm listening for
Choose
that.
real and competent change. Change that will not treat you and your future as their plan B or retirement game. There is a Turkish proverb that reads, "The forest was shrinking, but the trees kept voting for the axe was clever, and convinced the trees that because his handle was made of wood, he was one of them." Ladies and gentlemen.
Lord Jesus, I love that proverb. Wow. Be careful. Sheep in wolf's clothing. Well, that's right, Dee Dee. Kaboom and kaboom. So it's like the, I pulled up this image yesterday because I was going to share this. It's the fox saying that once elected, he's going to become a vegetarian. Y'all better be wise, honey child, because guess what? Yep, look at the history. Look, all the sheep believing that he's going to become a vegetarian. Poor them. What a hot mess. Once elected, I will be a vegetarian. I'm not going to eat you. I'm not going to devour you. Sure you're not. Yay. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's do a few comments, and then I want to talk about Miss World, and then we got to get into the Robert saga. Desert Storm says, we did that one already. Sorry, Desert Storm. Dacia says, I'm not all, good morning. Good morning, all, comma. I am not a PPM or either party, but I think Roy did a better job than all of them. Well, you're entitled to your opinions. What can I say? The majority of people, let me look at the poll. Has everybody voted in the poll? I would say the majority of people probably wouldn't agree with you, but you're certainly entitled to your opinion. Let me look at poll results. Emily Decoux, 44.58%. Bud Johnson, 40.56%. So the majority of people, honey child, have put Roy at 11.24%. So you're in the 11th percentile. That's pretty crazy. That is pretty wild. Now, having said that, let me say something about the TCC, about the CINP, all these acronyms and stuff, candidates. They have any poll that their people are in. I do know for a fact it's a little bit skewed because they're having their people vote heavily. Now, I don't know if the other parties are kind of like, all right, whatever. But I can see things in the back end that you guys can't see. And it gives me an idea of where people are voting from. And so what I can confidently say is that the CINP, their voting game in these polls is strong. Whether or not their voting game come election day is going to be strong is a whole other question. Don't try to skew the polls, folks. Let people vote and really you should only be voting in this if you actually sat down and listened to the debate last night and listened to them, because the question is, who do you think did the best job? So I hear you, Dacia, but the majority are not sharing your opinion, but you're still entitled to it. All right. So those are the numbers so far. Okay. Jamie says Emily was eloquent and spoke of the solutions rather than the problems. Love her ending. Marshall says, according to Jewel Hyde's sister, Jewel did the same thing to her mother. So what's your point? Not all families are perfect. Well, I don't really like to get into family drama because, trust me, from personal experience, yeah, a lot of Caymanian families are a hot mess and then some, including my own. And there's different family dynamics that sometimes we're just not aware of. So I don't really know anything about all that. So Merstar says, Marshall, they find anything to try to tear that girl down. She's clearly a threat. Lucky Body says, I am praying that Robert Bodden wins. BT East needs massive change. Stay Focused says it was like watching Sesame Street minus Emily. Mr. Balika says Emily was passionate without being emotional, empathetic without being overbearing. If she wins, that closing may have something to do with it.
Kaboom!
Yes, sir. Go on through, Ems. Go on through, honey chow. All right. Dean says the kettle calling the pot black. For who? Oh, he says, isn't the TCCP the same pack that put the country in a deficit? No, Mr. Dean. This is why you need to pay attention. It was actually PPM stalwarts like Giuliano, Connor Conley, Kenneth now again. It was the UPM government that put the country in a deficit. Let's back it up, because as I say, you are entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. When they got rid of Wayne Panton late 2023, there was no deficit. This deficit, which is going into 2026, has been created as a direct result of this UPM's government overspending. So you need to go ask yourself, honey chow, what they were overspending on. I can go back the interviews, Dean, for you to watch. In fact, give me a second here and I will do so for your benefit, because this is where the people need to educate themselves. All right, give me 1 second here now, because I know we covered this on CMR. In fact, give me a second, because I think the headline was something like, "Is the country broke?" or something like that. Because I don't think that Wayne liked the headline, but you all know that I don't really care about those things. September the 12th, 2023, Premier Cayman is not broke. I'm going to share the link here, Mr. Dean, because you need to go and read this article. Okay? So this is where in September 2023, before they got rid of him, he was, and I'm actually going to share an interview link as well. Restart to keep using Firefox. What's going on with Firefox this morning? He was actually saying to them, and he sent out a memo that basically said, we need you guys to, we still have 25 million or whatever it was, but that's not a whole lot of cushion. You need to start not overspending and save some money. Since then, the UPM government took over. They gave a cost of living increase. They then increased it again, where all civil servants are making a minimum of $3,000. All this time claiming that they had money saved somewhere. Only God knows where that money is. They turned around and every single Christmas trying to buy votes by giving the civil servants all $2,000 extra, including themselves, by the way, because they get that money too. So please fact check and make sure that you get your facts straight, because that's not the situation at all. So you've got the article. You can go and look at the interview that he did at the time as well. And in fact, we also did a whole show on it back on September the 11th of 2023. All right. So sort yourself out and make sure you understand what's actually going on. Goody, goody, goody. Mm-hmm. Now, let me just see here. This is what Mr. Panton said at the time. He says, I am not the person who's going to put this country's fiscal stability at risk. I'm going to do everything I can to avoid that, adding that he will create the right environment that continues to make the economy strong. He pointed out that it's required by law to have a surplus. However, while the budget surplus may seem to be a large amount of money, Panton said that it was just a small percentage of the budget. For example, the surplus for 2022 was approximately 54 million. However, this year's budget was almost $1 billion. All right. So we'll get to some more discussions on the fiscal position here in just a second, but I wanted to make sure that we fact check you on that point. Okay. All right. Let me see here. Flight Simulator says, not gonna lie, that was some fire-ending remarks. Jonathan says, foxes eat chickens, not sheep, Taras. Wolves eat sheep. Sheep would stomp a fox to death. Oh, is that a fox? Oh, well, all right. That's not a wolf? That looks like a wolf to me. That's a fox to you? Jonathan, you might be splitting hairs, but I know it's supposed to be a wolf. All right. A.D. Harding says CINP is one big joke. Ramelia says all what PPM has brought to the table should have been done a long time ago. They're full of broken promises. If they so care about our people, all this should have been done. Look at how they have neglected our people for years. Look at the millions in concessions given away. How has this helped our people? Take a look. Sorry, this took a toll on our local business owners. This is so sad. Just ICE for all. So Sandra, please, with your infinite knowledge, state how you can tell where the voters come from. You can see an IP address and maybe MAC address. Stop spreading false narratives. Oh, ICE. Why do you people like to challenge me when you know that I'm probably the last person in the world that you should challenge when it comes to telling the truth? Okay, let me show you something here. I'm going to just show you part of the analytics that I can have access to. And there's much more on the back end, including, yes, voting by country, broken down by percentage and who voted for who and the whole 9 yards. So yes, I can see where people are voting from. Oh, y'all are so ridiculous. I don't even, I'm getting to the point where I don't even know why I respond to people like this, to be quite honest, because 97% of my audience knows that I'm a straight shooter. And if I say it's X, it is X. Why would I lie about something like that? Are you like serious? Let me show you a snippet of some of the information that I can see on the back end. And this is when people are like, oh, she's somehow manipulating. I'm like, how the hell can I manipulate it? Honey child, I see the minute every single vote comes in, and I can also see where it's coming from and who it's going to, who's voting for whom. Not my IP address. I never said that. But I can tell you, there's also a little something ICE for all called common sense. And not for nothing, but there's certain trends that have been very, very obvious when a candidate for CINP is involved versus when they're not. Poor y'all. Debbie says, Emily, put some of that Louisiana hot sauce on that ending. It was hot. Denelia says, we have some serious memory loss issues. We don't, but they're hoping that we do. We really don't. Yep. All right, let's talk about, yeah, Siobhan says, stop responding to these people. This is there's something wrong with them, clearly. Don't waste your time on just for ICE. It's clear they ain't paying attention. Moving on. And again, Trisha confused, saying, all I want to know is why did the 4 oust Wayne? They didn't. My God, do y'all actually pay attention to what is happening in this country? I mean, I try to spend an exorbitant amount of time here breaking this down. Go back and check the Hansards. Trisha, I will give you $1,000 today. $1,000 today. If you can go to the Hansards and show where 4 people The 4 that are with him now ousted Wayne. $1,000. I know you hide behind a fake account, but I'm sure you'd find a way to collect your money. That is not what happened. In fact, y'all keep saying, oh, Andre, how can he trust Andre? Because Andre voted against him. No, he didn't. Andre abstained from the vote. And he explained why. And he said it wasn't about Wayne Pants, and he felt that all of them collectively were not getting it together. These things are a matter of fact. Trisha, that's not an opinion. You can't just throw that out there like you know what you're talking about, because you don't. And so when you say stuff like that, people just look at you like you're crazy because you don't even factually have the correct information. So if you don't have factual information and you're throwing out misinformation to make a point, people are like, huh? What the hell are you talking about? Radio station frequency is 103.1, honey chow. 103.1, Bobo 103.1. Yes. All right, let's continue because y'all got to pay attention in class now. You know, unless you have a learning disability, there's no reason why I try to make it very simple. I not use no bigly words. Okay. Let's keep it going. Okay. Let me read this comment. Not even Dart spent $10 million in a park. What happened to the recording studio Frank built in Scranton? A $10 million park next to a house that needs a roof. The Flowers Group will benefit as they slowly purchase up all the surrounding property. Kenneth was better off using the $10 million to build the Georgetown Experience by Kirk's, installing much needed craft market, rather than having people under a tent. Not for nothing, but the craft market situation is a hot mess and then some. All right, Mary Watson says, does Robert Bodden's past court case with Century 21 disqualify him? I'm so confused, trying to keep up with election news, so just seeking clarity. I'm going to clarify it for you, honey child. Let's get it. Ready? Dun, dun, dun. First, let's watch the video, and then I will give you guys the facts, because this is straight up propaganda, but here we go.
Been managing money wisely to keep the country financially stable. I will lead with integrity. I will lead with integrity. I will lead with integrity.
In the Grand Court of the Cayman Islands, Thompson Realty, Ltd., Tia Century 21, Plaintiff and Robert Bodden. The document suggests that Mr. Bodden may have intentionally concealed property transactions that he was involved in while working with Century 21. These transactions were not disclosed to Century 21, which would have been entitled to commission for any sales made under their contractual agreement. While initially denying any breach of the agreement, Mr. Bodden later admitted to violating its terms by accepting commission for transactions outside of Century 21's purview. This admission suggests dishonesty in how he handled transactions, while still technically bound by his contractual agreement. From the information provided, the following conclusions can be drawn. 1. Theft by deception. If Mr. Bodden deliberately concealed these transactions and withheld this information to stop Century 21 from receiving its rightful commission, this could be classified as theft by deception. In this case, he could be seen as intentionally misleading Century 21 to keep funds, commission, that should have been paid to the company. 2. Fraudulent concealment. By withholding important facts and transactions, Mr. Bodden could be committing fraud. Fraud involves knowingly making false representations or hiding information with the aim of benefiting at someone else's expense. Such actions could lead to legal consequences under Cayman's fraud statutes. 3. Breach of fiduciary duty. As a real estate agent under contract with Century 21, Mr. Bodden had a fiduciary duty to act in the company's best interest and to disclose all relevant transactions. By failing to do so, he has breached that duty. This could lead to legal consequences, including potential claims of theft. Now, not every instance of concealment amounts to theft, but the key here is intent. If Mr. Bodden intentionally hid these transactions to wrongfully keep the commission or profits that belong to Century 21, it could certainly be viewed as theft. However, given the ongoing concealment of critical information, theft seems like a reasonable interpretation of his actions. So, is this really the kind of person we want leading our country?
On April 30th, come out and vote early. Vote number 1, Robert A. Bodden of the Caymanian Democratic Party. Of the Caymanian Democratic Party.
All right, folks. So this is interesting, and let's break it down. So, Miss Mary, let me clarify what's going on here. It's election time, so of course we expect people to come as low as they possibly can. These are people in John John's camp who are not talking about the issues whatsoever. Okay. They are here to talk only about personalities. Now, sometimes on this program, we sit here and we talk about personalities too, but you better believe, without any fear of contradiction, that we talk about and we focus quite a bit on the issues facing this country. This is a perfect example in that particular district, how they are not focused on the issues. I'm just restarting the Instagram feed. Give me 1 second. They're not focused on the issues whatsoever. They can only attack personalities. Not for nothing, but if that's all you have, right? And on top of that, you can't even get it right. That says to me that you're desperate. John, are you running scared? They're talking about red flags. This is a red flag. Now, let me tell you what I know about this. I'm actually going to pull up the case here. Give me 1 second. Yes. Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm going to actually try to find the actual writ, and then I'm going to come back to you. Let me see here. Let me log in, sign in. Give me 1 second. Internet's moving a little bit slow. So this is focused on a lawsuit between Century 21 and Robert Bodden. The interesting thing about this is Robert actually mentioned this in his interview. Do you guys remember that? This isn't something that obviously he's trying to hide from anyone. He mentioned it in the sit-down interview that we had with him. And he said it is a contractual labor dispute or employment dispute, and it is still being, litigated. So, he wasn't really going to get into it because he talked about, his work history, some of the stuff that he had done. And he mentioned this in relation to Century 21. Okay. So let me just see if I can find it here. Give me 1 second. I'm coming. SEMA. That was, where is the lawsuit? Cayman. Show more. I want to just limit this search to Cayman only. All right, let me see if I can find it. The cause list for the court doesn't really go back that far. So I'm checking my other sources here to see if I can find it. So so these people went to great lengths to actually locate this, because I can tell you it is not on the court list. And so they may have gone as far as actually going in and doing a physical search. That's fine. Listen, if somebody has done something and you guys want to bring it up, by all means do so, but let's get the facts straight. One of the things that they have done, and I understand now why Ms. Watson would be confused, is they have taken criminal statements and criminal charges and allegations and applied it to a civil case. So let me clarify this first and foremost, okay? First of all, so someone says, I disagree with you. While it's an ongoing case, it is dishonesty, but it's not a criminal case. It is not a criminal case. A civil case is not a criminal case. No one has charged him with dishonesty. Okay? And even if it was a criminal case, if he had not been convicted, he would not be disqualified. McKeever Bush was charged with a dishonesty offense. When he used that credit card, that was a theft offense, basically. And because they lost, he continued to, he was never disqualified. He was holding seat the entire time the trial was happening. And has never impacted him, and that was a criminal case. So what this person has done is this person has confused the issues. Let's listen to this again.
Managing money wisely.
In the Grand Court of the Cayman Islands, Thompson Realty Ltd, Tia Century 21, Plaintiff and Robert Bodden. The document suggests that Mr. Bodden may have intentionally concealed property transactions that he was involved in.
Okay, so this is a dispute, and I'm trying to see if I can find the documents, because I actually want to read what is in it. Does anybody have a copy of this document that you can send me here now this morning? Because if I can read what they say in it, right? Despite it being a civil suit and not a criminal suit, as this video overlay suggests, right? When they start talking about, here's Century 21, that's 2012. I can't find it. Where the hell is this lawsuit? That's 2012. All right, somebody send it to me if you have it. I cannot find it. I can't find it. All right, let me try to, again, limit my search to Cayman. Show more jurisdictions, Cayman Islands. So when you use words, let's listen to what they say.
While working with Century 21, these transactions were not disclosed to Century 21, which would have been entitled to commission for any sales made under their contractual agreement. While initially denying any breach of the agreement, Mr. Bodden later admitted to violating its terms by accepting commission for transactions outside.
Okay, hold on. It says that he later admitted this. Where did he admit this? Where? Because the document that they're relying on, which is the application, the plaintiff, whatever, right? Where does it say in here that he admitted that? If he had admitted it, there would be no lawsuit. If he had admitted it, it would just be like, okay, now you owe us damages. Now you just need to pay damages. So there are things in here without actually having access to this document, because I can't really see it that well with the video. I would love to see a copy of this document so that I could peruse it to see where in this document he would have admitted this. Where does it say that? So this document, let's just back it up here, would be the, it says second affidavit of Cal Thompson, right? And then this is the writ, and Cal Thompson makes an affidavit swearing and saying certain things. So it says here, I'm the managing director. I can't really see this. Y'all stretching my eyes. Hold on. Can I don't know if I go full screen. Hold on. I think I can see. All right. Let's see if we can see a little bit more. It's difficult to see it. I can't really make it out.
Thompson Realty Ltd, Tia Century 21.
All right. Let's see what else. But what they have done here, okay, the application, it says that he's failed to provide full and frank disclosure, failed to provide complete bank statements as signed between the parties, failed to commit his agreement, a consent order. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know. Cal Thompson says, I believe that Mr. Bodden has no defense. Well, that's his belief. It's up to the court to adjudicate whether he does or not, except potentially as to the amount of any damages to be claimed. The matter does not fall for determination. I verify the facts on which the claim is based and to which the application relates, right? So that's his affidavit. Let me just see what else. So, listen, this is a civil dispute. They'll have to work it out. If he loses, he has to pay Century 21 money. That will be the outcome of it. But this voiceover, this AI generated voiceover on this certainly implies that a theft has been committed here. So let's continue to listen to how they word this.
Transactions were not disclosed to Century 21, which would have been entitled to commission for any sales made under their contractual agreement.
Yeah.
While initially denying any breach of the agreement, Mr. Bodden later admitted to violating its terms by...
Well, where does he later admit to that, right? So my understanding, again, I have actually not spoken to Robert about this, and certainly he's free to make his own statement in relation to this. But he was, and if you listen to his interview, he was doing real estate before and after Century 21. So my understanding, he has said that, listen, there were properties that he had that were listed that were not for Century 21, that were kind of listed on his own. And although there might have been some overlap in the time, Century 21 is trying to say that that fell under them and not under him. I don't know what kind of agency agreement they have. I don't know any of those details. It is possible maybe their agency agreement says, any work that you get from this day forward, even if you already had it listed with another company, no longer belongs to that other company. I don't know those details. What I do know is TCCP has a process before they take candidates on board. They do a vetting process, and they vetted Mr. Bodden just like anybody else. So they were well aware of his history, his past history with drugs. They're well aware of this lawsuit. And in fact, he had a legal opinion from a lawyer saying that, nope, you don't owe these people any money or whatever the situation is. And he provided that legal opinion to them. And let's keep it very, very honest here. In this party is headed up by a lawyer, Andre Ebanks, commercial lawyer, and also Mr. Wayne Panton. And they reviewed the legal opinion. And obviously, they did not feel that this was an issue for them. Now, it went to court in January, and I believe that they're waiting on the matter to be decided by the courts, and courts can go in either direction. But I think the issue here is that the impression that this gives is that this man has obtained property by deception, or he has engaged in theft, and this is not a criminal case. But that is the impression. The words that are used in the description certainly implies, and let's listen to it again.
By accepting commission for transactions outside of Century 21's purview. This admission suggests dishonesty in how he handled transactions, while still technically bound by his contractual agreement. From the information provided, the following conclusions can be drawn. 1.
Really? No, the following conclusions cannot be drawn, but let's listen.
Theft by deception.
So theft by deception is a criminal offense. That is a criminal offense. That's not a conclusion that you can draw from this civil lawsuit. If it was theft by deception since 2021, Cal Thompson would not have gone to the police and engaged their services. Trust me, the police have lots of time to take you to court for theft. This would have been a criminal lawsuit. I mean, a criminal charge, not a civil lawsuit. So let's keep listening. Theft by deception, that's a criminal
Bodden
offense.
deliberately concealed these transactions and withheld this information to stop Century 21 from receiving its rightful commission. This could be classified as theft by deception. In this case, he could be seen as intentionally misleading Century 21 to keep funds, commission, that should have been paid to the company. 2. Fraudulent concealment. By withholding important facts and transactions, Mr. Bodden could be committing fraud.
All right, so once again, fraudulent concealment, they go on to say it, and Crystal, I'm not defending him because no, I don't have all the facts, just like this person here have not presented all the facts. I mean, they certainly didn't tell you that he had a legal opinion from a lawyer that completely disagreed with this. So the point is, the conclusion that they're trying to make, because they say, oh, it's reasonable to draw these conclusions. I'm saying it's not reasonable to draw those conclusions at all. Because at the end of the day, those conclusions are of a criminal nature. When you talk about fraud, theft, dishonesty, obtaining property by dishonesty, yeah.
Fraud involves knowingly making false representations or hiding information with the aim of benefiting at someone else's expense. Such actions could lead to legal consequences under Cayman's fraud statutes.
Yes, so a fraud statute is a criminal offense. So why is someone putting this together? If they had just kept this about, okay, this is a contractual dispute and these are the allegations. And so let's question his character based on that. The fact that they have brought the conclusions in under the fraud statute, that means it's a criminal matter, and that is a lie. This is not under no fraud statute. And that is where I take issue with it. I'm not getting into the dispute between the parties because, yes, I do not have all the facts. I don't have all the information. The problem I have with this video is the way in which they have brought it together to draw conclusions that are not legally correct, and they're not even logical. That's not how you draw conclusions in a court case that is a civil matter, right? It is just like when, what's his name? Mario Rankin got on here and said, oh, you know, you've been convicted 3 times. I'm like, I've been convicted 3 times of what? And he was talking about civil cases that were all settled, no judgment from the courts ever. Basically, the parties said, you go in your corner, I go back to my corner. You might get a public apology that you wrote yourself, and that's it. Never paid a single dollar to anybody. And he's sitting on here talking to me on the phone, talking about, I have been convicted. That is not accurate. And that's a problem. So people can't accuse you of criminal wrongdoing when it is a civil case, and people are free to dispute and sue each other over anything in the world that they want. Some of y'all in court for stealing, family land, and you're claiming, well, that was fraud, this, that, whatever, but it is still a civil case. And that does not disqualify you in any way, shape, or form for running for public office. Now, by comparison, okay, let's talk about John, his opponent. All right. You guys want some straight facts this morning? Well, let's bring the facts. And the facts are John's company has done a horrible job of paying pensions, which is required by law to pay. Is that not an offense? That lands you in court. Most of you would be in court if you had done what John did. Non-payment of pensions is a criminal offense. And there is no doubt, I have shown you the paperwork. Let's go back to it in case some of y'all got amnesia. Let's go back to it, folks. There is no doubt that John has failed to pay pensions. I have seen the emails. What's the name of his company again? Somebody help me out with the name of the company. So he has admitted it. He was on a payment plan. He started to pay the arrears. He stopped. And all these years later, the man still APS. All these years later, the man still does not have his money. So let's go back. Let me see here. Oh, yes. Let's not forget back in September of 2019, when he was at an under 17 event. And let me share this article with you guys, since y'all want to go back and dig up some stuff. When he then went on to threaten someone saying, I'm going to F you up. Y'all remember that at an under 17 football event? The police contacted him and he was warned that if he has anything else to say to this person or he threatens them, he's going to have a problem. So give me 1 second. This person says, oh, now this is about John. Of course it is. It's that race. John's people are trying to put out this video to try to discredit him, but they conveniently forget that there's more than sufficient evidence that John has not paid his pension arrears for years. Let me see if we can find that one. Okay. He has failed to pay insurance. He has failed to, here we go. September of 2019, government minister owes employee pension 5 years on. That was 2019. We are now in 2025. How many years since 2019? And he still has not paid this man in full. And we have all the emails from the Labor Department. They were dragging their feet. The man was trying to, poor Donovan was trying to get his money paid. And they were like, oh, he'll get to it, blah, blah, blah. He finds out the entire time he was working for John Seymour, what's his name? Dwayne Seymour's company, Dwayne was not paying pension. That is a criminal offense. I will share the link, Stephen. Go back and have a look. And it was only when we got involved that all of a sudden the labor board was like, oh yeah, we need to get back. We need to get back to him. See all the emails here? June 2017, he followed up with Mr. Best from the Labor Department and was informed that he had hundreds of other matters that he was dealing with. He was too busy to deal with the breaches by APS and John. It's all in the article right there. So go and have a look. It's there for you to read. And here's the best part. To this day, he still hasn't done that. He still has not paid Donovan and others their money. Again, this is a criminal matter. Chris Saunders, right, was fined by SEMA. Since you guys want to talk about criminal matters, Cayman Islands Monetary Authority fined Chris Saunders. How much was it? $100,000? November of 2020. 2020? Yeah. Yes, sir. Good. You coming to see me? Yeah. All right. Well, come by. All right. Thank you. I don't know. You're going to have to come, but I'm on air right now. So, all right, cool. Okay. All right. Water heater, honey child. Cane Vest Bank fined by SEMA. Chris Saunders is the managing director. It was fined $100,000 because he breaches of anti-money laundering regulations. Again, those are criminal things subject to a fine by an oversight body. But y'all electing him, and you don't see that as a problem. Something that, as we try to stay off of blacklist, FATF, and all this kind of stuff, having a government minister fined by a bank, fined by the Monetary Authority, you guys don't think that that's a big deal? It's like, come on. Let us be fair. All right? So I'm not in Robert Bodden's business. We'll see once this is adjudicated, what the outcome is. If he has found to owe Century 21 money, then he'll have to pay Century 21 their money. It's as simple as that. You've got John, who was taken to court for assaulting another man, charged with physical assault. A jury let him off, but there was no doubt that the man was assaulted. There was no doubt that the fight took place. How do you make a phone call and lie to people that there was an emergency? And that is not even, I guess that's not a criminal offense. You can tell someone, oh, I just got ran over by a car. Come on down. I need your help. And that's not a criminal offense. Your wife getting exercised by the personal trainer during COVID. Nothing happens there. I'm just saying, listen, you're having to go at this man because evidently y'all must be scared. Somebody just reminded me of the June 2021 article. Yes, thank you so much, A students. Let's bring this one up as well while we're at it. Just hold on one second. Another one with John. Here we go. Some people seem to be getting a slide on a lot of different things. Minister Seymour's airport security firm unable to make payroll. His workers calling about how they're not getting paid. Failure to pay health insurance is also an offense. How many times has APS done that? During COVID, people are going to the hospital with a COVID diagnosis that could have killed them, only to find out that they work for John's company and they had no insurance coverage. How we end up here, Crystal, is very, very simple. we end up here because when you're going to call out Robert Bodden, and this is Dwayne Seymour's team, when you're going to call out Robert Bodden about a civil dispute and you have your current Minister of Labor breaching the labor laws that are criminal, non-payment of your staff, non-payment of insurance, non-payment of pension, those are criminal offenses. Those are also dishonesty offenses. If you ever sit in court, the magistrates say time and time again, non-payment of pensions is tantamount to theft because you're taking it out of people's paycheck and you're not putting it in a pension fund like you're supposed to, and you're spending it within your company. And so at the end of the day, the magistrates say that the the legislators need to amend it. But is it the case that now you can go to jail for non-payment of pensions? I'm just saying. So this person says, I see it looks like Cal Thompson likes TCCP meetings as I've seen him there, but Cal got sense and don't want PPM back in. What a mess. Listen, folks. Someone else sent me another video. Hold on. Let's get to this one and see what this one says. I'm just saying that if you're going to come after someone, come after them with the facts. Get it straight. This voiceover should not be talking about theft and all this other stuff when it has nothing to do with that. All right, so let's watch another video here. Alric, thank you for your patience. We're going to bring you in just a second. We're going to switch gears to talk about. Let me also get to Miss World quickly, because that's a very quick summation. Now that I have some more information. All right, so somebody else did this video. Let's see.
Board of the Cayman Islands, Thompson Realty, Ltd.
This matter is before the civil court and Robert is confident of victory because he did nothing wrong. This is not, repeat, not a criminal matter.
Well, thank God
Robert Bodden has never been charged or convicted of a crime. He has never been found liable for any civil wrongdoing. Ask yourself, Bodden Town, who is behind this and what is the purpose in destroying Robert? How do you feel about special interests and what they've done to our Cayman Islands? Do you want to do their bidding and give them their way? Save our Cayman Islands on April 30th.
Well, I hadn't previewed that one, so it's a good thing they bleeped that one out, honey. Yeah. All right. So listen, Miss World. I didn't really come to any conclusions last week when we discussed this, except that they wanted that young lady gone. That much was obvious. And I do think that they were unfair to her. So someone's asking the question, Chris Saunders' $100,000 fine connected to money laundering. I didn't say that. I said that he was not. I'll tell you exactly what the fine was in relation to, so that you're crystal clear about what this is. You should read the article. Always read the details, folks. As they say, the devil is in the details. He was fined for 4 different failures, and these are the types of failures that will get you in trouble when you are the managing director of a bank, okay? Because it allows things to happen through your bank that should not happen, potentially. He was also at HSBC, and let's not forget that HSBC has paid a significant fine for working with unsavory characters and doing banking business with them, including the mafia and Mexican drug lords and whatever. The reason why the pressure has come to bear on us, as well as many other countries, when it comes to money laundering and all of these anti-money laundering regulations, is because we need to keep our noses clean, right? Because if you don't, these companies will utilize your banks to do unscrupulous things. So he was issued a notice that the company had failed to comply with 4 requirements: the application of customer due diligence, that's CCD measures, enhanced due diligence, failing to identify beneficial owners, and failing to scrutinize transactions. Now, this wasn't the first time, okay? The company failed to remediate similar findings from an on-site inspection conducted 2 years before this, back in 2018. That's why the second time, they turned around and just fined his behind, because obviously he was not caring about being compliant. So that's why he got fined $100,000. I hope he paid it. I don't even know if he paid it. All right. Miss World. I took some time to reflect on this situation, and I also did some more digging, and more information came to me. What I will say is this. I have concluded that Pam is not being entirely honest. And the reason why I say that has nothing to do with what the young lady said, but independent people, independent of the young lady and independent of Pam, have said that there were things that Pam said during the interview that were completely false. For example, Pam said that Miss World paid for the makeup for these young girls. That was a lie. In fact, the makeup company is doing it pro bono to help out these young ladies. Okay? Now, the other situation where she talked about she's never made any disparaging remarks about these young ladies, that is also untrue, because there have been other people who have heard her, not connected to the girls, who have heard her say it, and other pageant queens have been subjected to the same sort of degrading, comment and so on. So you can't get on here and lie and think that the world not listening to you, and they're not going to reach out to Auntie Sandy and connect the dots. Look at this video of her.
If you believe you can move the highest mountains, cross the greatest oceans, and walk across the water, Believe you can move the highest mountains, cross the greatest oceans, and walk across the water.
I mean, I like her. This is obviously when she'd had the weave or whatever this is put in. That's her natural look. She said she didn't really want to mess with her natural hair. But I must tell you, either way, she's pretty. Look at her. She's an absolutely gorgeous young lady. Yeah, she's not pencil thin, but I think that this is thin enough. And I think that she is really, really a beautiful young lady. So, Letitia Bush, you go on through, girl. You're beautiful. Continue to do you. And Pamela, I'm very, very disappointed to have learned from independent sources that, you are saying things to these girls that you should not be saying. Clean up your mess, because it's simply not a good look. And so I can't give you wrong. I can't give you right when I'm hearing out in these streets that you're absolutely wrong. All right. So come better, because I don't really like it. And unfortunately, I think this is probably part and parcel of this hot mess of a, what do they call themselves? Pageant world. And I would say, Lord Jesus, think carefully, young ladies, before you even decide to get into pageantry, because it's ugh. What can I say? You guys are beautiful. Please go out there and do your own thing. All right. Yeah, she's absolutely gorgeous. Pam, knock it off. You're not paying for the makeup. You're getting that for free. I'm just saying. It's a trade. That means you're not paying for it. So don't come on here lying to us about these things. And if you call these young ladies fat and telling them they got thunder thighs and then they need to lose weight because this, that, and the next thing. Yeah. This person says, well, why are people surprised about Kenneth? This was an earlier message. My apologies. He aligned himself with liars. So why people still trust him? They say, show me your company and I will tell you who you are. If they want to dig up something, tell them to dig up the deputy leader of the PPM criminal history. He only just got a US visa when he received a ministerial position. Everybody's got to pass. Okay, this is the thing. Everybody's got to pass. I'm not sitting here looking for perfection, even with candidates. What I'm saying is, if you're going to dig up their past, accurately reflect what transpired. Just like I was telling you guys about Leon Gold, I thought it was important that you know the allegations that are circulating around him, one that went to court and the others that young ladies have shared their personal stories. I'm only bringing you the facts. I went through the court case. I said, he said this was his defense, that he was the victim. The women and the prosecution said this. It is then up to you to decide who you're going to believe and what your take on it is going to be. But bring the facts. Don't skew the facts. Now, we're going to switch now to the financial mismanagement. And we've got a video here, folks, that we are going to, let me just see where it is downloaded, actually. Hold on. Download, honey child, download videos. Okay. So we have a video here that will allow us to transition into our next topic, which is fiscal mismanagement. And this is in relation to the position that we now find ourselves in with this government, this current UPM government, overspending with money they simply don't have. Listen carefully to this message from Mr. Andre Ebanks, and then we're going to bring in Mr. Alec Lindsay, and we're going to break it down in terms of what the government's fiscal position is. Because if we run afoul of the FFR, which I understand we probably have already done so, the UK could step in. That would not be unheard of because they've done it before in other jurisdictions.
Cayman and Caymanians overseas. The latest pre-election economic and financial update, what we call the pre-FU, confirms what many of us have feared. Our country is heading into a financial crisis. Now, what is the pre-FU? It's an official report required by law that gives the public a clear and accurate picture of the government's finances in the lead up to an election. It is signed off by the financial secretary and the accountant general, and is meant to give voters the truth before they head to the polls. Think of it as a financial health check. And right now, Cayman is not well. And therefore, this requires comment by those of us in this election who want to lead this country. The pre-FU shows a $26.2 million deficit. That is an $80 million swing from the surplus promised by the Premier, Juliana O'Connor-Connolly, in December 2023 when she presented the 24-25 budget. It reveals overspending on vanity projects, broken promises, and a complete failure to implement the revenue measures that were planned. Let's be clear. This isn't just a budgeting error. This is a failure of leadership, a failure of priorities, and it's Caymanians who will pay the price. While families are being told to do more with less, this government spent $60 million on a school that was supposed to cost $24 million. They bought luxury vehicles for ministers. They pressed ahead with a $9 million concrete park, while our reserves are disappearing and our future is being mortgaged. By next year, cash reserves are forecast to fall by nearly 40%, just at the time where we need a rainy day fund to cope with rising costs caused by tariffs and a current global trade war. And by 2026, the government will be in a violation of the rules designed to protect our autonomy, risking the UK's intervention into our affairs. That's not leadership. That's self-interest run amok. That's reckless spending paid for with your future. That's why we say enough is enough. And that's why we're running. The Caymanian Community Party was formed because we had enough of waste, enough of secrecy, enough of politicians who think money is theirs to play with. We believe in responsible government, in transparency, in leadership that puts people first and the plans of the future, not just the next headline, not just to bolster the prospect and chances of someone's own election in their constituency. This election isn't just about who's in charge, changing who's in charge. It's about how things are done. Don't be fooled by the PPM's empty promises. They have a long track record of overspending. In the 2005 administration, they spent the country broke. Poorly planned and designed infrastructure spending. The 2013 administration was the only good one because they had more ministers around the table who preached restraint and control over spending. Persons like Wayne Panton, Osborne Bodden, and Marco Archer. Without more folks like that, when it came to the 2017 administration, the PPM once again had runaway development, open immigration, and they allowed the massive pension raids that will set our people back for decades. If that wasn't bad enough, some of the UPM members who are now in the PPM, namely Juliana O'Connor Connolly, which was part of the UDP government from 2009 to 2013, when she and then Premier Makiba Bush spent $9 million CI on overseas travel and gave us the NRA agreement. We have 20 years of proof that they will not act any differently this time. It's the same tax and spend members of the UPM who caused us to say enough is enough, who are now wearing PPM red shirts. The PPM or UPM can say what they want, they can promise what they want, but their actions speak louder than words. To reiterate, these are the same members who squandered $80 million are now PPM members. That kind of unwise, reckless leadership and governance is the type that the country can no longer afford. Now look at the PPM and ask yourself if you see many candidates that you can trust to manage the country through these difficult times we're now facing, now that we're broke again. A vote for the PPM is a vote for overspending and vanity projects. They will say what it takes, but they won't be able to control those members. The PPM cannot criticize the former administration when they've welcomed the UDP's leader, spender-in-chief, and the other high-spending ministers. Look at where we are in deficit. Without sufficient cash to meet our 90-day reserves as required by UK rules. Juliana and Kenneth did it, and now they're front and center in the PPM. So we're asking you, do you jeopardize your children's future? Do you take on more debt? Don't be fooled. There's a clear difference. When it comes to money and the country's financial affairs, TCCP is sensible. PPM is reckless. When it comes to priorities and issues that impact our communities, TCCP puts you first. PPM puts their own self-interest first. Say no to reckless spending. Say no to hundreds of millions of dollars in more debt. On 30 April, vote for responsible leadership you can trust. Vote for accountability. Vote for the Caymanian Community Party. Together we can fix this. Together we can restore stability and build a future that truly belongs to all Caymanians. Thank you for listening to this important statement on our country's current fiscal position, which is currently in disrepair. But with your help and with God's guidance, we can lead this country to better days. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you and our beloved Cayman Islands.
All right, folks. Very, very interesting comment this morning. Video that Mr. Andre Ebanks, the leader of the TCCP, has just released. So this is fresh off the presses. We literally just got it a few minutes ago. That was my first time listening to that along with all of you. I see a lot of you have some thoughts on it. Crystal, obviously you have your position. Carol Bragg says the finance minister for 3.5+ years. Miss Carol, again, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your facts. The fact that you do not know that Andre Ebanks was not the finance minister ever in this country, to me, is very, very shocking. Are you ready to go to the polls on April the 30th? I mean, not for nothing, but you have stated something here very, very strongly with 2 exclamation points, and you could not be more wrong. So when you go to the polls, you're deciding who to vote for based on misinformation. He has never, ever been the financial minister, the minister of finance. It was first Wayne Panton, and he was the one, as I just pointed out to you, who was preaching fiscal restraint, who was refusing to give Juliana O'Connor Conley $50 million for her BRAC project, her vanity project. And then somebody said Crystal can't vote. She's a Jamaican. Well, she sure up in Cayman business a lot. And then after he left, it was Juliana O'Connor Conley. She is the minister right now of finance. You don't have to believe me. All you have to do is know how to type and use Google. See right there? Premier and Minister for Finance and Economic Development, Education, District Administration and Lands, Financial Services, and Commerce, Health, and Cabinet. When Andre was there, he was Financial Services, which is completely different, who got us off of gray lists and blacklists, by the way, which the PPM administration, which included Juliana O'Connor Conley at the time, actually got the country on. Remember when that happened? Under Tara Rivers and that whole bunch. So you got to come with your facts. With all due respect, Miss Carol, you can't come on the show with misinformation. Bring your facts to the table. Johan chimes in, says Ms. Carol brags Andre Ebanks was responsible as the Minister of Financial Services, not the Minister of Finance, which I think you may have confused the portfolio or facts in your comment, hashtag facts matter, and they do matter. We have got to go to the 30th of April. We have got to go to the polls with the facts on the referendum issues. Which, by the way, no one's talking about the other two issues, but we need the facts available to the people. All right. Mr. Alric Lindsay, we were ready for you, but I'm seeing that you're having some technical problems. And she says finance. Carol's response to Johan is finance is finance. No, it's not. Financial services and finance are two different things. I mean... really? You think it's the same thing? Oh my God. Our people need help. Good morning, caller.
Yes, Lord help us, because this is the exact reason we're in the mess that we're in.
Exactly.
Because the majority of the voting public, they have no clue. They have no clue how government is run. They don't even know the difference between Minister of Finances and the financial minister. Like,
there's a huge difference between the two.
I'm so like, it's discouraging.
Oh my God.
It's very discouraging because she's not the only one that confuses it. Trust me. People have no clue and they're voting. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
All I can do is pray for April 30th because this is a sad situation.
There's a huge difference between the two. Jim says comprehension is everything. Somebody else in the comment says, Ms. Risa says, people, please understand the difference between the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Financial Services. Andre served as the latter. Another person says, tell her ignorance is ignorance. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude here, but like, seriously? Oh
no, you have to educate people because, like I said, if you think she's the only one that confuses that, you're wrong.
But the thing is, we're sitting here educating people and they're simply not even listening because they come here with preconceived ideas and preconceived notions. So how do you help someone like that? They don't want to.
But like you said, they don't have to take your word for it. Like literally, you can go and look it up. But if you refuse to do that, then like I said, all I can do is pray because we're in a hot mess.
All right, my dear. Thank you so much.
All right.
The prayer list keeps getting stronger and stronger. Alric Lindsay, good morning to you, sir. How are you? Unmute yourself for me, please.
Good morning. I'm very good. How are you?
Not too bad. Let me just address Trisha. She says he sat there having control of financial services and said nothing. Andre knew what was being spent. Well, that's not true. Again, Trisha, I would really invite you guys to try to educate yourself, because after they left, they had a meeting where they explained that because of collective responsibility, they can't come out and tell the people how they were fighting. It's not that he was sitting there saying nothing. They were saying plenty. The reason they end up leaving, according to them, is the fact that the government simply, certain people in the government was simply not budged. They've cost us $17 million. Was it 17 or $7 million? I think it's $17 million with the DART project, the dump facility, whatever we're calling it. They've canceled that. And there's nobody that can tell me that you're going to be able to procure that same facility, that same caliber of facility, all these years later for cheaper. DART already started the remediation. We have to pay them $17 million to breach a contract, which again is a civil matter, right? And we're going to have to turn around and go through the whole procurement process again. In 20 years, we'll be lucky if we have a facility, and it's not going to get any cheaper. Thanks to every single thing that's happening in the world, including Trump and his hot mess, it's probably going to cost the people double what it would have cost us if we had just stayed in the contract. These are piss poor decisions, folks. We have got to stop electing people who are more concerned about special interests, their friends, and all this kind of foolishness instead of the bottom line. The country is broke, but yet she was out there doling out money to civil servants and themselves like it was no big deal. So no, Trisha, he did not just sit there and say nothing. They did not just sit there and say nothing. And if you care to have the position, you would go and listen to what they actually said. And the evidence that they produced during that meeting, the dates, the timelines, how they were in conversations with DART about the way forward. And all of a sudden, DART is showing up talking about they have another meeting with somebody else in the ministry who that does not even fall under John's responsibility. And the minister responsible for that, Kathy, knew nothing about it. This was the kind of nonsense that was happening in that government, right? They were sitting there with, what's his name? McKeever Bush, running the government at times in caucus when he's not even a cabinet member. McKeever Bush has one of those overpriced Tahoes driving around. He has two assistants, one young Spanish girl. They say that's his family member, but he's still trying to fool with the poor girl, driving him to do his personal grocery shopping in a government vehicle. He's liquored up and driving around in a government vehicle. And these are the things and the issues that you guys do not really want to talk about and do not want to face. Venetia says, Sandra, don't address these people. They're a bunch of disruptors sent to brainwash the small-minded people who don't read to sway the voting public. Unfortunately, the sad thing is, Venetia, if we don't address it, as that caller said, how many people like Ms. Carol Braggs don't even know the difference between the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Financial Services? They're not the same thing. She's like, oh, it's the same thing. No, it's not. Financial services is an industry. Finance is about the budget, the economy, the spending of the money, the concessions, all of that stuff. How ignorant will our people? This is what I call willful ignorance now, because we live in 2025. My God, we have so many resources available to us. Everybody last night when the AI question came up said, oh God, they were listening to your show, Sandy, because they came with some decent answers finally. You guys cannot continue to let people base on nonsense, innuendo, misinformation. These things are readily available to the people of the Cayman Islands. Educate yourselves. This is not Trump town where misinformation rules the day. This report that has come out, this 2025 pre-election economic and financial update, is available for anybody who wants it. I'm going to post it up on the screen this morning. We need to come with facts and figures. We had the likes of Marla Ducrant on here talking about facts and figures as it relates to the port. And you guys are arguing with an economist about what does she know and this, that, and the next thing. if we continue to want to be a third world country and a real joke, that's how you want your country to run, then just come right out and say that. Come right out and say that you don't care about fiscal mismanagement. You don't care if the UK comes in and takes over the operations of our country. You don't care the impact that that's going to have on the civil service. No more hiring, no more pay increases for the next 15 to 20 years. No money to spend on fixing any of the issues that we have facing us, including the dump, including education. All of these things need a fix, but guess what? Everything takes money. And right now, we don't have any of that. Alric, your position on this?
Yeah, so overall, the other issue, other than mismanagement, is actually a misstatement. And as I mentioned in the debate, the government is actually supposed to follow these accounting principles, the public sector accounting standards. And this has been done for several administrations where they didn't follow the standards. So not to make anything complex, but they didn't include employee benefits, which is post-retirement, healthcare, and pensions. And that amount is $2.4 billion. So that is not something new. It is something that the Financial Secretary, Ken Jefferson, brought to the attention of the government. And previous administrations just basically turned a blind eye to it. And the reason that they turn a blind eye to it is because if they did include the proper liabilities, then the government would be in breach of the agreement with the UK. Then the UK would control our budget, strategic policy statement, etc. Now looking at the actual numbers, again, not going to go into any detail. People might be curious as to why the deficit is forecast for 2025 for 26.2 million. So I'll just mention a few things very briefly. You remember the COLA, cost of living adjustment? So that was effective 1st of January. And then we had that minimum salary of $3,000 that was put in place. Well, that cost us $20 million. And we also gave out some honorarium, some one-time payments, and that cost us $10 million. And then we have, some supplementary expenses by cabinet, and that came up to like $32 million. So I'm just giving some meat to, the actual expenses that were forecasted or incurred, to give people an idea of why the deficit is forecast. But yes, I have to agree that we have to stop electing politicians that focus on legacy projects, like personal legacy projects. I have to have my name on this building before I leave, or on this project, or on this street before I leave office. We have to make sure that we have people in office that understand the financial statements, understand the need for proper budgeting, and understand that if you don't spend the money in accordance with the country's interests, then you should be held accountable. Right now, no one is being held accountable, and there's no protests from the public either. But this kind of behavior of poor spending and mismanagement, it can't continue. So when people go to the polls, they need to take that into account as well. How is our money being managed? And are we electing people that understand the issue and are going to comply with accounting rules and keep us on the right path?
Right. And here's the other problem, Alric, as well. We talk about the fact that obviously the electorate is themselves not educated, which is really, really sad. But we're also being hoodwinked by people, candidates who themselves do not have the requisite knowledge to be able to run this country. I am sorry, but if you've never ran a successful business, you have no education, you have nothing that you're bringing to the table. We must just elect you because you need a job. Because as one candidate, Hunter Walton, said, he's only there because he can't afford a house and he can't, he doesn't have any money and this, that, and the next thing. That is not a criteria for you to be elected to public office. But this is the mistake that we continue to make. We've had some good, viable candidates. that are qualified and have because like I said, it's not just about the qualifications, but the qualifications do matter. And they also have the people's interests at heart. And we have, neglected to elect those people because of popularity contests, because someone gets up there and they do backflips and hoopla and whatever, and say stupid things at, at political meetings, and that gets you all riled up. And those are the people that you go and put into elected office. We have got to do better. There's no criteria whatsoever. Somebody said to me, but you mean anybody can run for public office? Pretty much. As long as you don't have a dishonesty conviction, you're a Caymanian, right? You don't have another citizenship, and you also, don't have a conviction for over a year that you've spent in jail. Anybody can be an elected official. Right now, we have a criminal, McKeeva Bush, not for nothing, who we have elected to public office. I'm going to read a few comments here. This person says, please do a show on the understanding of government 101. Break it down so that a 5-year-old can understand. We do so much educating on this program already, but people don't listen. That's the biggest problem. They don't care to learn. This person said, good morning. This is the same reason I sent you this message last November, because sadly, some of our people don't know the difference between many things, not just Minister of Finance and Minister of Financial Services. This person says, good morning, my sister. Thank you for your show and for you. I did not know the difference either of these two entities. Thank you for shedding clarity. Well, here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with not knowing. The problem is people who don't know pretend like they know and state things as though they are factual, and they are not. That's the problem. I never have an issue. If you don't know something, even if I don't know something, I will try to go away, research, ask the relevant people, try to learn, try to understand. You guys have got to get this report. Now, here's the thing, right? I don't expect everyone to sit down with this pre-election economic and financial update and read this. It's how many pages? Let me just scroll down. 76 pages. I know that most of you are not going to read this and come to any conclusions. That's why I have Alric on here today explaining some of it and going through some of the information. Alric, you have a CPA?
Yeah, but I'm no longer practicing, so that's lapsed.
Okay, but the bottom line is he has the relevant experience, and he also has a law degree, right? So he is in a position, a fairly good position, in my opinion, to read this and to have some level of understanding and hopefully be able to explain it to the people here this morning. And thank you, Alric, for clarifying that, because we have other people who are running for public office who may have a law degree. They're not lawyers, but they sit down there and make people call them lawyers, and they don't correct them. That's the duplicity of individuals.
So just one other clarification.
Hold on. Ms. Brenda asked the question, does Mr. Bush have a criminal record? Yes, he does. He does have a criminal record. He was convicted for assault, and that record was not, the sentence was suspended, but he has a record. He has a record. He's a criminal. Alric?
No, I just wanted to just make one correction. When I went to London for a few years, what I did was we had a special conversion that a lot of partners and accounting firms, a lot of partners and law firms do, which is convert from one degree to another. So I did the conversion from the accounting degree and went through what they call a postgraduate diploma in law. And then I did the solicitor's exam and qualified that way. So there are two different ways to qualify. But but you're right. There's a lot of details in the 76 pages, and I think the government should do a better job of explaining stuff in simple English, plain English. Mm-hmm. And so what people need to understand is that there's just poor planning and poor spending, mm-hmm. and we do not follow the accounting rules. And the fact that we don't follow accounting rules means that we've misstated the financials. I think those are the important things. If you don't have time to read the 76 pages, or if it's too detailed, those are the key things.
Mhm. What a hot mess.
So, I mean, as you've heard from some candidates that they're going to leave it to their leader to figure out the finances. I mean, you also need to be individually competent. If you're going into office, you need to be able to make value-added contributions to the budget statement, to the budget debate, and you just can't leave it to your leader for what someone said to me was, what if your leader is sick? Who's going to make the comments then? So that's why you need to be individually competent, so you can speak in parliament, and also so you can go back to your constituency, your electoral district, and explain it to the people that you represent. So it can't just be the leader all the time. You have to be individually competent. And I hope that people are looking at this and saying, do these people have the relevant skills and understanding, to make that contribution to our country and to get us out of this mess and get us off of this, reckless path.
Yes, because the end result, Alric, if we stay on this path with our finances, in your opinion, is what?
So, well, we're not going to have enough money to run the country, and that's then going to force us to get more loans, which means that we're going to saddle our children with debt that they're going to have a rough time paying off.
Well, what about running afoul of the FFR? What if we do that?
So my opinion is that we run afoul of that from previous administrations. The reason I say we ran afoul of it is because we refused to follow accounting rules. If we had listened to the Financial Secretary, Ken Jefferson, and if we had listened to our Accountant General, Matthew Tibbetts, then we would have properly recorded $2.4 billion in liabilities. We refused, the previous administrations refused to follow the accounting rules and refused to include the $2.4 billion in liabilities. If they had properly included it, we would have definitely breached the UK framework. So that's why I say we've been in breach for a while. And my opinion is because we didn't properly follow accounting rules. What we did was we decided to hide the 2.4 billion in liabilities. We hid it in the notes of the financials. We did not place it on the statement of financial position. And people should be aware of this. We have years of the government hiding the liabilities, not reporting them properly. So in my opinion, we have been in breach for a while, and it's just being discussed now. But like I say, if we had recorded the stuff properly, then everyone would have known earlier that we were in trouble.
All right. Let's talk about and break down some of what is in this document, because again, I do think that it's important. One person sent the following from Hosea 4:6 in the Bible. Says, "My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. Because you've rejected knowledge, I also reject you as my priests. Because you have ignored the law of your God, I will ignore your children." Even the Bible speaks to the necessity to, how important knowledge is. That should not be something that should be denied by anyone. Now, I saw Selvin making a comment that I find very, very shocking. Selvin, again, I know you're drinking some Kool-Aid, but OMG, let me try to see if I can find it. He says, "Come on, Sandra, gray list or black list, the list on whether we are on or off has nothing to do with what we do or don't do. The point is, Andre was a part of the government from most of a full term." Your work in financial services, Alric, when someone says to you that whether we're on a gray list or black list, it doesn't matter, how do you respond to that?
I think what it is if you're not in financial services, you probably wouldn't be aware of the significance. So it does matter, and it matters because it could lead to people not doing business with Cayman. So to explain what it is in easy terms, the Financial Action Task Force was basically set up to be this global standard setter for anti-money laundering. And so they set these rules out, and they required countries around the world to then put these rules in their domestic legislation. So that's what we did. So we have the Proceeds of Crime Act, we have the anti-money laundering regulations, and then we have institutions like Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, Financial Reporting Authority, to help regulate and inspect companies to ensure they're in compliance with these rules set up by the Financial Action Task Force. So initially, what the Financial Task Force did was they evaluated countries based on what they call technical compliance. What is technical compliance? This is showing that you have proper laws in your country that comply with the objective of anti-money laundering, those rules that are set out by Financial Action Task Force. Now, over the years, Cayman became technically compliant. But as soon as Cayman became technically compliant, the Financial Action Task Force changed the rules, and they added something called effectiveness. So what effectiveness is that although you have the legislation in place and you're technically compliant, we want to show that what you're doing is effective, meaning we want you to show us that you're putting people in prison for money laundering. And as you can see, there was an uptick in cases since we had that pressure on us to be effective. So we had a few money laundering cases that happened where people were charged under the Proceeds of Crime Act. And then that was used as evidence to give to the Financial Action Task Force to take us off of the gray list. The significance is that if we hadn't done these things, if we hadn't become compliant, if Andre E. Banks didn't help the country to get on that path of compliance, then we could have come off the gray list and actually go on a blacklist. And the blacklist would mean that the Financial Action Task Force would then warn the rest of the world that they should not do business with us. So what they do is they do like a public notice. And because they have such a wide reach around the world, they would issue this public notice saying, be careful doing business with the Cayman Islands. And if that had happened, then you would see new businesses refusing to do business with us. You would see countries overseas shutting down bank accounts for people that are based here, just because the Cayman Islands could be on a blacklist.
And not only that, Alric, but they could also start to do things like fine us and put other other restrictive things in place. But let's get to the bottom of this, because you've gone very, very deep. The bottom line is this: 70% of the money in this country that flows through everything we do, right? That helps people build homes, buy cars, afford the bus ticket. 70% comes from the financial services industry. You guys have got to put stuff in perspective. We are on a public campaign right now for the port to push cruise berthing facility, when something like less than 20%, 18%, maybe even 10% is coming from that industry. 70% comes from financial services. Selvin, that is why it matters. Johan responded to you. He said, come on, General Selvin, let's strike a deal. You don't comment on the many things that you do not understand, and I'll never comment on construction or anything about you being a Kool-Aid drinking zombie for the PPM ever again. Hashtag facts matter. Hashtag help us, Father God. Miss Martina Watler in the house. Good morning, Martina. Martina says, appreciate your emphasis on individual competence. 100% agree. Many individuals rely too heavily on their leaders/parties. That's why these forums are important. Because even if you are sitting down listening to a party, right? The party leader, folks, you got to turn down your radio when you call in. Even if you're listening to what the party leaders have to say, if the individuals are not qualified, they can't even articulate what the party's position is, you have got a problem. And those people should not be elected to public office. We have got to raise the bar. We've lowered the bar. We've lowered the standard for elected office. Now it is time that we raise it up again. Financial services is important. 70% is a lot of money. That's a lot of your GDP running through this country. You kill that because of non-compliance, dog gonna eat your supper. Yeah. During COVID, we survived in this country because of financial services. Tourism was shut down for a substantial amount of time, and we still survived thanks to financial services. This person says you let clowns anticipate a circus. They know the rules, but hide the numbers to keep our Moody ratings and keep within the FRC debt ratio. We elected broke people who ran their personal finances into the ground. Why should you be surprised that they run the country's finances into the ground as well? And there's something to be said for that. Stay Focused says maybe that's the reason why they voted poorly for the past 40 years. Lack of understanding. Thank you, Alwick, for full transparency. Praying that you get elected. Let's look at some of this, Alric. There is a executive summary here. I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger. Maybe I'll do it. Hold on. I will pull it out here, and then I'm going to put it into another screen so people can see it. Good morning, caller.
Yes, sorry to interrupt such a informative segment.
Yes,
but
sir.
Since you're on top topic of finance, yeah. Sorry. Let me just rephrase. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Don't know we came on with you without you.
Thank
but
you
not
so
in a good
much.
position, obviously. Yeah, since we're on that, especially Alric, I guess, but both of you probably know more about the finances than most of the local people came on and speak of. What would it really take? What does it take? Are we headed in the direction of currency devalue? I'm here to tell you that for longer than that, but years ago, my first job out of school, long time ago, been here for a while, I was paid in Jamaica currency. Mm-hmm. You see what it worth today.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, I think there's a lot of people. Yes, there's a lot of people here that thinks that the good time will last forever for some reason, and not realizing that we are prone and we are not exempt to anything else that the world has to endure from mismanagement. Usually politics is the root cause behind all of it. Mm-hmm. But thanks for giving the information that you're doing. But could you just kind of peruse that question that I just asked in regard to financial stability and what does it take to get your dollar devalued? Because I'm quite sure that would strike home to Caymanians a lot. They might get the message how serious and how deep we are going down the slippery slope of no return.
Thank you.
Okay,
Colin.
guys.
I appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you so
care.
much. Yeah, I mean, this is a valid point, Alric. This isn't about, oh, yeah, we're in debt, so maybe we can't do the dump right now. And, to this caller's point, there are some potential far-reaching implications in terms of this that might put us down a path of no return. We shouldn't take this lightly, right?
Of course not. That's why I keep saying you can vote for someone who's very nice to you when they come door to door and they make jokes, or you can vote for someone that understands that we're headed down a bad path and they're competent to understand what's required to get us on a good path, which is compliance with accounting rules, honestly and properly, and curbing all of these personal legacy projects, and doing things that are in the interest of the country, and not something you're doing just to say, oh, I did this while I was in the office, you know? I hope people are taking into account what is really important this time around, because if you look at these numbers, you know, the numbers they presented are not attractive numbers. And if you do the proper accounting, as Kenneth Jefferson said, the impact on the financial statements, on the income statement, would actually be a negative $100 million. So right now, what we presented is 26.2 million deficit this year. If we followed Kenneth Jefferson and did proper recording, that would actually be $126.2 million. So we need serious people in government, and also people who are going to follow the rules and think about our future.
Gigi says, thank God to CMR. Thanks to God, in CMR, I now understand several things, which before I was like blind. This year, I'm thinking and analyzing who to vote for. Gigi, I'm so glad to hear that, because we all have to weigh the candidates and look at what they bring to the table and consider a number of things. So yes, qualifications are significant. Qualifications matter. You know, you have to look at the integrity of people. You know, whether or not they're able to go in there and work with other people. You know, there's a lot of different things. We went through a whole list, remember, of things that we said were a priority for looking at someone when it comes to electing them to public office. And no one's going to be perfect for sure. No one's going to necessarily check off every single box at the highest level. But I think it is worth going through that process to try to find the most viable candidate. So let me be very clear that this pre-election economic and financial update actually looks at the financial year ending December the 31st, 2025 and 2026. So even for those of you who are trying to go previous to that, Mr. Wayne Panton and the Pat government dissolved in 2023, this report isn't looking at that period of time. So I want to be very, very clear, right? The country was not in this position when Wayne Panton left the government. Look at the period that we're talking about here. We're talking about this year now that's coming up, this fiscal year, ending December 2025, and next year. Because whoever goes in, that's why it's called pre-election economic and financial update, whoever goes into office is going to have to be ready to deal with the situation. And regardless of whatever their positions are on projects, their hands could be severely restricted because they simply do not have the money to get things done. That's why this report is so important. Just like during the last election, Alric, you may remember this, but remember when the Pat government got in and they said, listen, the PPM government, who had been in there for umpteenth years, they were talking about, you know, oh yeah, we need to reopen the country, we need to do this, we need to do that. But the Pat government go in there and they don't find anything to do any of that. There was no plan on how to safely reopen the country. There was no money on how to do that and sustain the current position. They had passed legislation to increase their salaries, have all these foreign offices, and yet there was no money allocated for how any of that was going to be done. And then they sit there on a platform last night. Mr. CPA himself used to work at, where was he? Which firm was he at? Ernst & Young?
KPMG.
KPMG, right? Big shot at KPMG. And he's sitting there acting like the PPM were great with fiscal management. They were not. And in 2023, that was 2021, my apologies, when this government went in, that was very, very evident. They had a lot of projects, but no money allocated for how they were going to pay for it. That's why one of the first things the government had to go in there and do is get an interim budget in place. The foreign offices. Remember when Mr. Andre said, boy, I don't know if we're going to be able to afford these foreign offices. He tried to cut back. Some of you have very, very selective memory. Okay? When the UPM government took over and they started to hemorrhage money, remember what happened? Remember the situation with the our credit union? When Andre starts to increase these fees, you heard what the man said at the time. That happened, although Julie tried to throw him under the bus, pretend like she didn't know anything about it. That happened because when they were doing this budget, how are we going to pay for this? Where's the money coming from? You know what she said? Go and find the money. We haven't raised these fees for banks in a while. Go with your technocrat, go with the civil servants and figure out how we are going to raise the money to pay for this stuff. And they had principally agreed to increase fees across financial services. So when he came with the recommendations on how to do that, it's so interesting that she wanted to pretend like she had no knowledge of that. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sandra.
Morning,
Good morning,
Gary.
Olive.
Morning.
Good morning.
Anyway, this subject which I'm about to try to broach is not something which is going to be popular in Cayman, but you know, because of the fact that of our economy, which I do not see as sustainable in any way, shape, or form. Our economy here in the Cayman Islands is majority dependent upon the financial services industry. But I do think that if we are going to be honest with ourselves individually and collectively as a country and as a people, we have to come to an understanding of the somewhat fleeting nature of the financial services industry itself and the fact that we are a satellite, in my humble estimation, pawn of the City of London and the center of global international finance and financial services. We are a satellite pawn, and they could very easily get up and go at any point in time. And part of the real estate advertisements are advertising exit strategies, okay? We need in Cayman to look at that reality, okay? Because we're putting all of our eggs into a basket that does not have the real stability that many or most people think it actually does. Secondly, if we're going to be honest with ourselves here in Cayman and we discuss the sociological problems that we have here in Cayman, like Caymanians not being able to afford land, so on and so forth. If we're going to talk about environmental degradation, so on and so forth, then we do have to look at this reality, y'all, which is this. The financial services industry has brought a large amount of gentrification to the Cayman Islands, okay? And that comes with a price. And with the price of high development, high value housing, residences, apartments, condominiums, I would venture to say that a large portion of that is to house those who come from offshore to work in the Cayman Islands financial industry itself. And there is a direct correlation between those issues, infrastructural, housing, environmental, from the large amount of people who come to Cayman to work in the financial services industry and the issues that we face here in the Cayman Islands. And I think that it is time long past for Cayman to take an honest, for neither fear nor favor, look at the implications and the consequences. We can look at the pros and the positives of the financial industry here in Cayman all day long. But we have to learn to stop treating it as a golden cow that is beyond any reproach or any honest look at both the pros and the cons and the consequences, unintended or otherwise. I do not see anybody, particularly in positions of power and or influence in Cayman, being willing to look at those realities. We speak about high cost of living, high cost of trying to get a house and a home. Well, who are in those structures? By and large, it's the people who come here to work in the financial services industry. So we have to look at that reality with a clear and honest and objective eye, because there's a price to be paid for everything, good and bad.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan.
No. One more thing, Sandra. Our government system here in Cayman has been run along the same lines of lack of transparency to the general public as the financial services industry itself has been modeled after. And whether we like it or not, those vehicles of financial anonymity have afforded the worst of the worst of the worst of Cayman owns crooked as a dog's hind leg politicians. And we in Cayman need to understand that fact if we expect to move forward in a positive way. It's time to take the blinders off and look objectively at every factor pertaining to the well-being and the interests of the Cayman Islands and all of our people, regardless of how inconvenient and uncomfortable it may be. Y'all have a good day.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Here's the thing, Alric. When people say that financial services is fleeting, this is an industry that Cayman has built since the 1970s. How fleeting is it? The entire world works off of financial services. All the top, Hong Kong, New York, the UK, London, Singapore, all these places work off of financial services. We are in the game now. We are a small player in terms of our country and the power that we have. That's why we got to play by the rules that the G7 and the big boys create. But is financial services a fleeting industry in your opinion?
So we have to understand why we're being used in the first place as a good location. So without getting into any complexity, basically it's when you're in a larger jurisdiction, there are so many rules and red tape to get things done. There are high taxes, a lot of complex regulations. So although we have our own regulations, I think that we have more regulation in the right places, which makes setting up a hedge fund here a lot more straightforward and a lot less expensive. And we don't subject those entities here to taxes. So there are a lot of reasons why people are coming here. Obviously, some people may think that financial services is just linked to bad acts, but it's not the case. The case is that there are valid, relevant reasons that I mentioned why people are attracted to the Cayman Islands to do business.
Caller, question or comment?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And good morning to you, Alric.
Good morning.
Okay. I have a question, and I'm hoping that Alric is able to answer my question. And just sort of declare, this is not to Alric personally, but because I know he's been in the field for a long time, so maybe he's able to, shed some light on it for me. So the question is, we have SEMA here, and I remember, back in the day, because I worked in finance, and as I remember it, the purpose of SEMA was to monitor and police all of the financial institutions registered in the Cayman Islands. And lately it seems, and I'm speaking now specifically about the retail banks, it seems that they no longer have the authority to police them. And, because I know of all the stuff that's going on, and you try to report it to SEMA, and they're basically saying, "Oh, my hands are tied." So my question really is it that these, should I say, powers have been taken from SEMA, or is it that they're overwhelmed by it, or have I'm just really baffled by what's happening right now. With what's happening, to Caymanians by these retail banks. So I don't know if, Alva can shed any light on what the role of SEMA is now.
Okay, thank you so much, my dear.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Alric, when it comes to commercial banks, that's a different class. Those are Class A banks?
So retail banks are
Retail
Class A,
Mhm.
and then you have Class B banks as well. But retail banks are regulated by SEMA. So SEMA still does inspections, still does their reports of anything that needs to improve in the banks. So the banks are still responsible towards SEMA.
Mhm.
Now, SEMA should have more powers. For example, when you see the U.S. Federal Reserve raise their interest rates, and the banks get together as a cartel and then raise their rates, that should actually require SEMA's regulatory approval. So that's something that I think should be changed.
Mhm.
When she talked about possibly SEMA being overwhelmed, I would probably agree with her, because the more international pressure that's placed on us, that means that there are more regulations we have to put in place,
Mhm.
which then means there's more work for SEMA to do in terms of inspections and keeping our country to the standard that we should be. So they should have more staff. The other issue is that SEMA needs to be in control of its. SEMA needs to be operationally independent from the government, which means that its budget and its finances should be done by their board of directors, and not by the government, which is, as you can see, poorly managing finances. This is also important to SEMA, because I think that when international organizations look at SEMA and possibly have to review SEMA or assess SEMA, they also probably look at its operational independence to determine if it's truly an independent regulator. So she's completely right that SEMA could actually be overwhelmed, and part of that issue is that they need to be operationally independent with their finances.
And is it the case as well that legislatively there are barriers for SEMA controlling what can be done, like with interest rates and that sort of thing? I don't think SEMA has that power in legislation. Is that correct, or am I wrong there?
Well, usually you find a lot of SEMA's powers in the Monetary Authority Act. So I don't recall their specific powers in relation to the banks, but I do know that it's the banks acting as a cartel to increase the rates. And SEMA, I don't think SEMA has that power at the moment to require that regulatory approval. But like I say, I haven't looked at the specifics for the banks under the Monetary Authority Act or the Banking Act.
Right. And to be clear, most of what SEMA does in terms of regulation, it's to ensure compliance, like liquidity requirements, to make sure the banks aren't going broke, that they have enough liquidity, that they're not in debt themselves. SEMA regulates a lot of industries, insurance industry, funds, securities. There's a lot of different things to what SEMA does, but their remit is one of regulatory compliance for very, very specific things. So if you actually go to SEMA's website, you can see some of the things that they do. So regulated services, banking services, money services, business, virtual asset providers, trusts, corporate services, insurance, investment funds, securities. And if you go under banking services, it will actually tell you some of what the licensing requirements are. So they do license banks, and then they make sure that they are remaining relevant with like Basel 2 and 3, and what the reporting requirements are. And they have to provide certain information to SEMA in order to stay compliant. So, some of this information is on their website. They've got different SOGs, policy and procedure. And I would encourage you to maybe go there and have a look at the website. So for example, one of the things they do is they make sure that directors are fit and proper. And there's a personal questionnaire and a declaration of source of wealth and source of funds. They talk about, consolidated supervision minimum standards of a physical presence subject to Section 6.6 of the BTCL, issuing notices of decisions to decline applicants, approval of an auditor, approved stock exchanges. So there are very, very specific things that they are in charge of and that they're responsible for. And a lot of it has nothing to do with the consumer at all. Like, I don't think very much of it has a direct, I mean, obviously liquidity is important to protect consumer, deposits and so on. But they do have something here about, risk management, credit risk management, foreign exchange risk management, cybersecurity for regulated entities, marketing policies of licensees. So a lot of this information is out there on CIMA's website. I'm happy to share the link so that some of you who are interested can most certainly go and have a look. But it says that Section 34 of the Monetary Authority Law enables the authority to issue or amend rules, statements, or guidance and statements of principle. In addition, Section 48 provides for the issuance of a regulatory handbook to contain the policies and procedures of the authority in carrying out its regulatory and cooperative functions. And then they show you for the banking services sector, what are the rules, statements of guidance, regulatory policies, and regulatory procedures. So if you go under the regulatory policies, you can actually have access to CIMA's regulatory handbook, which talks about the internal operations and specific information on matters regarding their supervisory approach, decisions, and anti-money laundering procedures. And so talks about the structure and responsibilities of the board of directors as it relates to the banks. So I think that is very, very important to understand what their remit is. I do believe that we have an expectation for CIMA to be the ones who protect us as consumers, and that probably does not really fall within their remit. But I'll certainly share their policies and procedures handbook so that you can get a much better idea.
Yeah, I mean, obviously CIMA can't go in and run people's businesses. So CIMA does expect that the banks and other regulated institutions, they follow the law as well, right? So, like you said, ultimately, they do have an interest in protecting investors and protecting the public. But they do expect that those institutions follow the rules as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, when we make statements like financial services is fleeting, an industry that people like Sir Vassal and others built from the 1970s, I think that is a very, very serious statement to make. And it demonstrates perhaps how, again, we don't understand our reliance on financial services. And as a country that has very, very limited resources, right? If financial services were, heaven forbid, to disappear tomorrow, we would be a Venezuela overnight. This is why we remain compliant with all of these things that are expected of us, because we understand our place in the food chain. And our place in the food chain is we provide services that a lot of people want, a lot of millionaires and billionaires around the world. They certainly take advantage of those services. But let's not be blinded and think that we can run a country without the benefit of things like financial services. We might be able to run a country without doing anything else to tourism and improving tourism, but could we run a country where 70% of our money and finances come from? Absolutely not. And what's the alternative? I love how people want to talk about at the chamber forums, sports tourism, medical tourism, those things are a drop in the bucket. There's no ability here for sports tourism to become a major player like financial services or anything else. And I'm really shocked when I hear some of the candidates trying to propose these, they might be a small stream of revenue, but that's not something that this country is going to be able to rely on to feed our children, to pay our bills, and to have this $1 billion budget that we're trying to ensure, gets paid and fund the civil service. Good morning, caller.
Hi, morning, Auntie Sandy. I
Morning.
got some message from you.
Yeah, you work in financial services as well. So when someone says that financial services is fleeting, what are your thoughts?
Fleeting, I'm assuming that's in a negative sense that they're referring
Well,
to.
I mean, like it could just disappear, like it's fleeting. It's not, the normal word fleeting.
Is Alric still on?
Yep.
Okay, no, great. I was on a call, Zoom, and all that jazz, so I missed a large chunk of what you guys are talking about. But financial services and whoever said it, and I'm not sure of the context, but I don't think people have an appreciation for just what financial services represents to the Cayman Islands economy, job opportunities, revenue derived from financial services, and it is clearly the one pillar of our economy that separates us from every other country in the region. Cayman has a first-class reputation as an offshore financial center that has been built up over several decades. So for those that are reckless or don't understand when they say that financial services is fleeting, obviously they didn't work in it, they don't understand it, and they don't appreciate the benefits of what the industry has provided or does provide even today in 2025. Ultimately, when you look at the revenue that is derived by CIG from financial services, you only have to look back as far as COVID. Everything else was shut down. Tourism was shut down, all of it. The one thing that kept the machine going was the revenue derived from financial services. So if you're talking about fleeting, it has proven itself decade after decade, going from strength to strength, that it is the lifeblood and the primary pillar of the Cayman Islands that represents at least 60% of our GDP, which doubles up. I think the second highest revenue earner for the Cayman Islands government is customs, duties, and so on and so forth. So, again, not everybody will appreciate it. I think a lot of candidates have said that we need to have a course of some kind where we teach children in schools the value of financial services and do an introduction into what it is, even at the primary school, which I think would be invaluable, because we don't rely on agriculture, we don't rely on fishing, we don't rely on tourism. What we rely on is the revenue derived from financial services, and woe betide should that go away because of a, I don't know, act of God or people not appreciating what we have. But the one thing that I think crystallizes the point is government after government after government after government recognize the golden goose of the Cayman Islands is financial services, and it's the closest thing we have to oil, which basically provides provides revenue for them and funnels or fuels everything else that the country seems to programs that the country and the government seems to provide. So that's all I'll say about that, and hopefully that makes sense. But people don't get it. People don't want to get it, and there's some people that are just in denial. So you can't help those people. They just gotta feel the pain and understand how good Cayman has it. Then they can talk the nonsense that they talk.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, babe. Bye.
All right. Have a good one. So, I mean, listen, I think that we have to understand that with a lot of countries, they may only have one or two primary sources of revenue. Take, for example, Venezuela. Venezuela has oil. And despite the fact that they are oil rich, they're still piss poor, because of a lot of different factors, but mostly government overspending and poor government decisions. Someone just said, if I could explain what liquidity is, because a lot of people may not understand what that is. So again, I'm no accountant, but I do have a basic understanding of what the term liquidity means. And basically, when someone talks about your liquidity, that's how much cash you have on hand. So one of the things that I think I have a little definition here. Good. One of the things that banks and other companies, not just banks, but insurance companies and so on, one of the things that a regulatory agency like SEMA will require is for you to have a certain amount of cash reserves or actual cash on hand, or something that you can convert into cash in very, very short period of time. So they have some liquid asset examples, liquid versus illiquid assets. You've got cash, stocks, bonds, whatever, something that's easily convertible, and that you would say has minimal loss of value, right? And then you have other things, real estate, fine art, private business interests, and so on, that would not be so easily convertible. So banks have to have, and all these other companies that SEMA regulates have to have a certain amount of liquidity. We saw with First Cayman Bank. Remember when, not First Cayman Bank, First Cayman Insurance Company, is that what they're called? When they were having some issues a couple of years ago, SEMA went in because they're concerned about their financial position. They said, right, we see you struggling to pay your insurance claims. That's a concern. We're going to increase, this is the role of SEMA, we're going to increase what we require you to have in your liquidity. So say it was $5 million, just throwing out an example, right? SEMA can go in and say, no, we want you to double that. We want you to have $10 million cash at any given time unreserved. So if we come in and we do an audit, or we do, review of your books, we need to see $10 million sitting there in the event that something happens. We know that you can meet your liabilities, and you're not going to not be able to pay claims, staff, et cetera, et cetera. So basic definition of liquidity basically refers to how easily and quickly an asset can be converted into cash without significantly affecting its market price. And cash is considered the most liquid asset because it can be used immediately for transactions, while other assets have to be either sold or whatever, and they're subject to a lot of different things like the market and fair value and so on.
That's a good summary. And what is very interesting is that the balance sheet, which has the assets and liabilities set out, that is also usually prepared on the basis of liquidity. So it's very interesting you mentioned that, because, for example, to give you a picture, a typical balance sheet will have current assets as the beginning, and that will show cash, accounts receivable, investments, things that can be sold very quickly or converted into cash very quickly. So it's a very good explanation that you gave, because that is exactly how the financials are actually laid out in order of liquidity.
Some questions coming in for you, Alric, this morning. So one person says, Sandra, please ask Alric what his take is on the government charging some kind of a tax on all the money that's leaving the country. It's something that needs to be addressed, but they're all hiding from it. So the assumption here is this person is referring to, obviously, the money services business. SEMA does make some money. The government does make some money off of it, but there's not a direct tax on the money that people are actually sending. How do we make money off of money services? I know there's obviously licensing fees and stuff like that, but is there any other way that we're making money?
Yeah, I think a few years ago, there was a fee added to, I think, like the Western Union transfers going out. But the suggestion that, or this statement that the person is making here, I actually explored this. And so what I would say to the person is, the International Monetary Fund produced a report, and if I could get the link at some stage, I'll probably send it to you so you can share it with viewers later. But if we look at the International Monetary Fund report, it actually says that when countries add these extra fees to transfers going out, it may not actually have the effect that you think that it will. So it actually needs to be studied to determine what the actual impact might be. And a good, like I say, a good source to look at is the International Monetary Fund report.
Right. It is an interesting question, because I think about other countries that, every country in the world, pretty much, with the exception of very few, you can send money, you can do money transfers. But I can't think of any country that actually taxes you on what you send. Normally there might be a fee associated with sending it, and that's how the company like Western Union makes their money. And then governments might levy, operating costs or licenses, business licenses and stuff against companies like the Western Unions of the world like that. But do you know of anywhere in the world where the people who are sending the money that you send is taxed?
I'm not aware of any specific jurisdictions.
So you have to kind of ask the question why that would be. And if Cayman tried to implement that, and we're the only place in the world that tried to do that, what would be the implications of that? So I think there's further dialogue, obviously, that needs to happen. I have something here up on the screen, and somebody should research it. I think it's something that's worth, maybe Ms. Marla Dukran can do some research and look into that one as well. But I've just put something up on the screen here, folks. When we talk about fiscal mismanagement, this is where these things matter, okay? People are not paying attention to, unfortunately, what is happening in this country, and we need to pay more attention to what our government is doing, how they're spending our money, and where the money goes. So with the PAC government, one of the things that they brought into place that was quite good is they started producing these cabinet post-meeting summaries. They were the first government to ever do so. And in those things, there are nuggets of information. If you're paying attention, there are nuggets of information about how money is being spent and the things that are being done, right? So our government is spending money, for example, on churches, giving them $1 million contributions with no real justification as to why we're doing that. This one, which came out for February the 25th, and again, this is the Cabinet post-summary meeting report. If we have a look at the first section, it talks about things that were approved, and then it says approve pursuant to subsection B, the public management and finance law. So we see capital funding for various capital projects. That's another $1.2 million. Here's one that's interesting. They approved a grant to the Manna Foundation in the amount of $750,000. Do you have any idea, Albert, what the Manna Foundation is? I've never heard of them, but do you know?
No.
Okay, so let me just do a quick perusal here and see if I can find out what is the Manna Foundation. Never heard of them, but we gave them almost $1 million. Okay. I've never heard of them, so I don't know who they are. Let's see, Manna Foundation. Community focused initiative aiming at providing humanitarian services to residents in association with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So again, the Ebenezer Seventh-day Adventist Church operates a multi-service community center. And once again, that means that we've just given another $750,000 to a church. Okay. This is Juliana O'Connor Conley for you. All right, so now we know what the Manna Foundation is all about. Never heard of them in my life, but now I know why. So we just gave them $750,000. We also have here that money on page 2. We approved a proposed new road by Creek Primary School in Cayman Brac. And there was money being moved around. So if we have a look at, let me just see what section this is. Give me 1 second here. If we have a look at, 1 second. I have it up on the screen, but it's so small I can barely read it. So give me a second. Let me just have a quick look here. All right, so page 3, at the very top of page 3, there's 2 interesting things here that we see. And the first one is that the government has taken money From the waterfront tourism experience, they moved $1 million from that. And again, this is the same government who is saying we need a port or we're going to, lose cruise tourism. They moved $1 million from the waterfront tourism experience and moved it to the Central Scranton Park. So the park got another $1 million, but where they took it from was from the waterfront tourism experience. But yet we're saying that we need to prioritize tourism. It's a little bit weird, but the park is more important right now. So the park gets another $1 million. Then we saw that right underneath that subsection S2, they took money from sports and cultural tourism program assistance, another $1 million, and they put that to the Central Scranton Park as well. So $2 million. And I'm just going to give me 1 second here so that I can screen grab this for you. Because of course, again, don't ever take my word for it. I'm going to show you right here where it is in this document so that you can see it very, very clearly for yourselves. Right. So you can see exactly, as they say, where is the money going? So permit me to, I'm going to take this one out because you can't really see that one too well. And then I'm going to bring it up in a slightly bigger format for you. So we've just allocated an additional $2 million to the Scranton Park because I'm sure it's already going into overspend. Keep in mind that the same company that is doing that is the company that was tasked with the revitalization, the construction company, Caymanian owned, but still, they were tasked with the revitalization project of Georgetown. And that certainly went over budget and over time as well. So there's little I and little two. Again, $1 million moved from 2 tourism related things, sports and cultural tourism programs, things that would probably be helping the tourism experience. I don't know what the waterfront tourism experience is, but they had $1 million that was moved from there and $1 million that was moved from sports and cultural tourism programs assistance. And both of those $2 million then went to the Scranton Park. Let me just have another little look here. We're going to go down to on page 3 again. Let's go down to X. And again, these cabinet, post-cabinet reports are available for anybody to access online. So thanks to the PAC government, we can give them credit for that, because this helps us to see where money is being moved to and kind of what cabinet is doing to some extent. So to be clear, before, what cabinet did was really showed it in secrecy, and we knew nothing about it. At least with these reports, we get a summary. We're not going to have all of the details, but we will get some of the summary. And here's another one now. Is this the right one? Let me just have a look here. Oh, sorry. This. All right. So X approved the waiver of registration fees and late registration fees for adjudicating the transfer of land instrument for property in Cayman Brack, block 103D, parcel 77. Now, I don't know who owns that block and parcel number. I don't know if that's like government or who that is, but it would be interesting to see what more we can find out about that specific block and parcel number. So anyone who has access to the land surveying system, look this one up for me, 103D, parcel 77, and let's see who actually owns that parcel. So there's a lot of things that are going on in Cayman Brack at the moment that, very, very questionable, to say the least. And so lots of questions to be answered for sure. So lots of questions, not so many answers, because again, the government doesn't actually come on board and tell us exactly what it is that they're doing, but we at least have the benefit now of some of these reports. Ay, what a mess. We haven't gotten through the big report here, Alric, because, it does take some time. I have gone through and done like just a brief summary. What are some of the highlights for you that stood out when you looked at this pre-election economic report?
Well, it's just what's highlighted to me is just the breakdown. So when you're looking through it, you see that personnel costs are going up, but these are, in my view, were really done in connection with securing re-election. So when you the COLA, for example, the minimum salary of $3,000, the thing is, you should have treated civil servants good from a long time ago. You should have had proper performance appraisals and evaluations in place a long time ago, so that they would be rewarded in terms of salary a long time ago, right? So the fact that this is just happening just before an election, it shows you that the expenses were timed in connection with re-election. So personal cost is definitely one of the things that was drawn to my attention. So like I said earlier, that was, the COLA and the minimum salary increases. So for me, that was a main highlight for me. Obviously, there are other stuff in there, dealing with public authorities and non-governmental organizations, but the personal cost was the one for me.
Mm-hmm. Someone wants to know fiscal discipline versus increased taxation. They say is the way forward. What do you think about this? So, what do you think when people say, "How do we balance the budget? How do we get back to a sensible position when it comes to government spending?" People are always saying, "Oh, well, we have to find ways to make more money." Sometimes economies shrink. We see what's happening now in the US, for example. I don't know how much money we're going to be making because the cost of living has just shot up. There's a real war on now between the world's biggest manufacturer of products, being China, and the US, putting tariffs in place upwards of 50% on Chinese goods. I mean, almost everything I order off Amazon has a sticker on it that says made in China. Now, the price of all of those things are going to be going up. So what's the position as it relates to, do you keep trying to find new revenue streams, or do you have to just be responsible in terms of how you spend your money?
I think you have to do both. Most importantly, you have to be responsible with the spending. But obviously, you should consider new revenue streams as well.
Mm-hmm.
But our issue is that we have the money, we just spend poorly.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It's the other thing too, Alric. That's such an interesting question. And I always say to people, we need to think of our personal finances in this regards as well. So when people talk about, okay, let's increase the minimum wage, I said, okay, great. You increase the minimum wage. That means you're going to be increasing the cost of living across the board for everyone, not just the people who are getting the benefit of the increased minimum wage. But the one thing that individuals never seem to think about is how they can increase their value so they can earn more money, right? I see people all the time like, oh, the cost of living. No one ever says at these forums, as a person, how do you increase your value so you are actually making more money, that you're an asset to organizations? So if you're only making $3,000 a month, of course it's hard to survive in Cayman on $3,000 a month. But what can you do to improve your value and to create new streams of revenue for yourself? And there are things that people can do. They can, obvious things, they can get second jobs, it's not. But if you're at the bottom of the educational ring, the bottom of the experience ring, and you're at minimum wage, you can have 10 minimum wage jobs that you're trying to hustle and work. And someone on the side who has a skill, who has a real viable asset, they can have the one job and still be making more money than you that has the 10 jobs. And this is why individuals need to start looking at themselves and having an honest discussion about how they can improve their salaries in life. And how do you improve that? Well, one way in which you can improve your salary in life is through education. Get a degree, get a certificate, get a, TVET. I don't care what it is. Get a skill that is in demand that people need and they're willing to pay top dollar for, right? You will always be stuck at minimum wage. Minimum wage could be $1 million an hour. That means expense is going to be 5 times, 10 times that. So you're always stuck at minimum wage unless you do something to increase your value as an employee or if you're in business for yourself. So please, folks, I need you to think about that. So El Ray was right on the money when he said it was probably some church foundation. Turns out it was. Tasmar says, wouldn't that likely increase rental fees if they weren't allowed to own and then rent? I'm not sure what question that was tied into. I think Shannon was saying the rental income earned by non-Caymanians should be taxed. Look at countries like Gibraltar, annual rental income earned by non-Caymanians. So, when you start to tax people, I think you can expect that there's going to be a trickle down effect, and that's going to impact consumers. Listen, businesses pass on the costs. Generally speaking, this is business 101. They pass on the cost to the consumers. Always, in 99.9% of the cases. So you start to tax rental prices, then the rental market is going to be directly impacted by that. We get taxed. It's not direct taxation. So we're not directly taxed on goods. We still pay we still pay import duties on all of our goods, that come into Cayman, but that is included in the price that we pay for those things. Someone recently was talking about their friend is in Hong Kong, and they were talking about the price of things in places like Hong Kong, being so much more expensive than Cayman, and that you actually get less, especially in the rental market. You're paying top dollar, but you also get less. They're like little miniature apartments. It's not a big sprawling 2,500 square foot or 5,000 square foot house. You're paying a lot less. You're paying a lot more, and you're actually getting less. So we need to look at these tax models to see if we are looking at potentially taxing people, what will be the trickle down implication of doing so. Marshall says, so Kenneth and Juju are the ringleaders in all of this crazy spending, and now they're both with the PPM on the PPM bandwagon. Miss Marjorie, good morning. She says, oh my, can't believe the funds were moved from the Tourism Experience Project. We spent millions in advertising Cayman, but we need to offer more to the tourists when they get here. And again, when you talk about, well, the port is such a priority is what the one argument is, and, we need to improve the tourism experience, blah, blah, blah. That summary shows you that they're not really that concerned about improving the tourism experience if they're going to move $1 million from that and put that in a park. Miss Anita, good morning. She says, Sandra, I believe that whatever new government comes into being, which will probably be a mashup from the 3 parties and independent candidates, they should create a manifesto within 1 to 3 months after meeting with their various district committees. Well, they don't exist yet, so that's going to take way longer than 1 to 3 months if you wait for that. That signed manifesto is what we, the people, should hold them accountable for. So there's a couple of possibilities, Miss Anita. Obviously, we have to wait to see exactly what happens at the election. But, you might still have one dominant party who is in. And then remember the other parties now, well, at least the CINP, Miss Anita, have their candidates signed a contractual agreement where they cannot and they're not permitted to form a government with another party. So there wouldn't be a mashup in that sense. What you would have is they would have to resign from CINP and then go and form a party independent. So there's no mashing up there at all. CINP has ensured through their candidate contracts that that's not going to happen. Taika says the government has the money, not people making a minimum wage. I'm not quite sure I understand that, but Lucky Body says utilizing the scholarship program and getting a higher education can also increase your value. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's how you do it. Jim says, I agree, Sandy, when receiving higher education. However, $6 per hour for minimum wage in the Cayman Islands is absurd. due to cost of living, everything now here on the islands. Yes, I mean, listen, you can increase it to $100 an hour, and if that's going to increase the cost of living, and it's going to be way above the $100 an hour, and it's still going to always be an issue. This is my point. The cost of living, the minimum wage is not meant to be a livable wage. It's certainly not meant to be where people should be aiming to stay. And I think that maybe there's some misunderstanding there on behalf of the people. Ms. Brenda says sports tourism is a suggestion for diversifying your economy, not to replace any existing industry. But I do agree with it, just like I agree tourism needs to be enhanced and expanded so that it can bring in more revenue. Yes, well, I mean, I would hope, Alric, I mean, you tell me what you think as a candidate in this election. When you talk about diversification, you don't diversify just for the sake of diversification. You want to diversify in areas that make fiscal sense. In other words, they're profitable, right? Why diversify in something that doesn't make any money? So Carolina gave an example about, I think it was Carissa or some event that she was involved in. This is when she was working with Sedoni, and I think they brought some athletes here. They brought Usain Bolt and whatever, right? And as I was sitting here, I had a friend over, and we were listening to her comments, and I said, I'm willing to bet you that people like Usain Bolt and all these guys, they were paid money to come here. We roll out the red carpet for them. We comp them apartments, hotels, and all kind of stuff. We get them drivers. We spend a lot of money on getting them here, right? So sports tourism sounds like a good idea, but how feasible is it that it's going to be a money maker for the people of the Cayman Islands? Because a lot of these countries, especially regional countries, they come here and they put 10 kids in one room to be able to afford a hotel room at the cheapest hotel available on island. Or they're looking for sponsorships or, so sports tourism, big money maker. When you talk about the diversification, apologies, Alric, does it have to be diversification that makes fiscal sense?
Yeah, it has to make sense. And the good point that you're making is no one actually thinks about what it costs to provide services.
Yeah.
So for tourism, for example, we run the Turtle Center. We have Cayman Airways. We have different services which are connected to tourism, and we never talk about what it costs to run those things. So we want to look at this big revenue figure. We say, oh yeah, we're making money, but no one looks at the costs of providing the services. So yeah, it has to make fiscal sense, and also the government needs to do proper research before, it pushes out some of these ideas. Like even myself, I had to correct myself in my own manifesto, because when I initially thought of that idea to put a fee on transfers going out, it was drawn to my attention by a Georgetown South voter that the International Monetary Fund actually produced this report. And so what I did was I went and read the report, and I realized that when you're in a time of crisis, like we are, and then you introduce that kind of fee, it actually might not be effective. So this is why I have a living manifesto where I listen to what voters are saying, and I go and do my own research. And now I have to make that slight amendment to give that warning note that if you pursue such a route, you have to do more research, and you have to consider whether what you're doing is actually effective. So when you get a chance, if you could share the link for the International Monetary Fund report, it will give people a better understanding of, although something sounds like a great idea, they have done studies to show that adding the fee in a time of crisis is not effective. But yeah, going back to your original question, certainly you have to have fiscal sense, and you have to do proper research to understand whether any diversification that you're proposing is going to work.
And this requires some deeper, more complex thought because, Mr. Tyree Hernandez called me yesterday afternoon, and he didn't perform well at the chamber forum because he said, they kind of gave him last minute notice that he would be there. And I said, well, I think every candidate know that these forums have been held for 8 or 9 election cycles now, and that everybody gets invited. So apparently they emailed him, and I guess he never got the email or whatever. Excuse me. So they, sent him, called him, I think, as a last minute resort to say, hey, it's coming up tomorrow. Are you coming or not? Because we've not heard from you. And he was talking about, he said one of the things, how he was saying, let's bring in food from Honduras because, everybody thinks that importing regional food is a great idea. And he said that when he's spoken to Woody Foster about it, Woody made a comment to him that they already have, their supply chains in place. And so I said to him, well, that's an interesting comment. I obviously have not spoken to Mr. Woody Foster in any significant detail about this, but as a business owner, right? And I think that this is another reason why owning a business is a good thing. Even if it's successful or not, it gives you experience and you can speak from a broader perspective. I know that there's certain supply chains and certain supply, not just chains, but locations, geographical locations that are much more reliable than others. So the Foster's company has been in business now, 50 years or whatever. I think they celebrated 50th anniversary, a grocery chain. If they have vendors and suppliers that they deal with, right? To upend those relationships on a hope and a promise that they can potentially work with someone in Honduras that they don't know. They don't have a payment process in place with them. They don't know how those people are running their operations, if they can provide them with enough product. If regionally we get hit by a storm, chances are we're going to get hit and Honduras is going to get hit. The U.S. is a big country, so even if Florida has an issue, they can pull stock and product from California, from the Midwest, from New York, bring it down to Florida and then put it on the boat and bring it to us. So I was thinking about different elements of the logistics of how a grocery store must source their products, right? Everything from we have a payment process in place, like maybe they get a certain amount of credit. And then they know at the end of the month, they can just wire that money there. When was the last time someone tried to wire a $2 million amount to Honduras? What are going to be the hiccups? What are going to be the issues? Honduras is not known for always being fully compliant. We just saw the ex-president brother get arrested and charged with drugs. And I think even the ex-president himself is now looking at some issues. So there's a lot of moving parts to how not just the cost of the food itself, but all of the other elements of running a business, dealing with your vendors. There's the language barrier. So does everybody in Honduras speak English? During COVID, our consumers, because we had off-brand bleach, Caymanians didn't want to buy that. We were like, where's the Clorox bleach? Where's the Bounty paper towels? So a lot of Caymanians don't even they trust certain product names that they've grown accustomed to. So now you have to get your market accustomed to getting things that look different, that might be different. I don't know if Honduras has the equivalent of an FDA that checks products, if it says these ingredients are in it, is that what's actually in it? Is there any consumer protection in Honduras? There are a lot of questions, right, that remain unanswered every time someone says, yes, let's just run to Honduras regionally and get our food from there or get our products from there. I'm like, okay, have you thought about all of these things? Where is the business case, the full business case for it? I need to see a full business plan where you've analyzed and done your SWOT analysis. You talked about your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. One of the threats is that they're going to be putting stuff in our products, trying to import drugs as well. Honduras is a big transport point. I'm not saying that the U.S. isn't a transport point either. But the regulations coming out of Honduras, when you have historically a president, his brother, the highest people in the land, involved in the importation of drugs and involved in the transportation of drugs from one jurisdiction to the next, turning a blind eye. You have to know that that's going to impact your viability of not being caught up in that sort of situation as well. So there are lots of questions. And although people throw this out during an election, Alric, I've never seen someone put together a full business case for this. And this is why it is worth talking to the grocery stores and understanding what they see as the challenges, because you're asking them to go and upend their entire supply chain, the relationships that they may have had for 25, 30 years with vendors, et cetera, to do what? To take a chance on a little company in Honduras that they might get you what you want and in time? You can see as a business owner how I would be uncomfortable with that, right?
Yeah, that's why I said it. That's why I said that government needs to do more research before, it implements these things.
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying you need candidates who can think at this level. They're not going to just throw out these seemingly easy solutions. As I said to someone, if this was all that simple and all that easy, we would need educated candidates to do it. Anybody could do it. I got a dog around here. His name is Zeus. He could run for public office and say, yep, let's just do this. And it would happen. It's not always that easy.
Well, Zeus might do a good job, actually.
Well, he's going to do no harm. That I can tell you. He might bite one or two people, but he's not going to really do no harm. Thank you, Jim. He says that we'll be continuing to bring in these people who are less fortunate and who are accustomed to living in less fortunate conditions, who will take up to $6 per hour for jobs, get into many businesses and see who are in the front line. Well, the thing about a lot of those people, Jim, is I'm going to be very, very honest with you, is a lot of those people might start at $6, but they ain't necessarily staying at $6. Let's be clear. They're moving up the pole. Gabby says we become too accustomed to Americanized independent American brands. If it works or tastes the same, I'm buying the cheaper brand. Got to save those coins. Jim says, vote for Zeus. Natasha says, as for the Latin American, what does the M stand for? LATAM grocery link, liaise with Vernie Coe and his cousin, the same one who assisted us with getting the COVID test kits. All right. They came out of Mexico, I believe. Okay. We saw that shipment coming from Brazil, the shipment of chicken. I meant to talk about this, but a lot of people don't seem to know much about it. So I did do some research, and I can tell you that a lot of people are like, oh, I've never heard of this chicken brand before, blah, blah, blah. It is a chicken brand that does come to the Cayman Islands. The brand is actually brought in there's a distributor here in Ireland for that brand, and it's brought in for Uncle Clem's, but even Woody Foster's actually have used it on occasion as well, but they just get it from Uncle Clem's. They don't source it directly, apparently. So it is a chicken brand here. We know the government was trying to tell people the Jamaican government, let me be clear, was trying to tell people to be careful eating it because they had some concerns, I guess, that, I don't know, contamination or whatever, it might not have been incredibly healthy. So, but it is a Cayman brand. So there you go. It's been here before. Yeah, Alwick, if you are elected, what can people expect from you when it comes to fiscal management?
They can expect good governance, accountability, transparency, following the accounting rules that require us to make the proper figures reflected in our statement of financial position, so that we're not only in compliance with rules, but we're presenting an honest set of financials to members of our public. You can expect that those things that we see in our financials are explained in plain English to the members of the public. And you can expect that you get a public meeting, whether that's via the actual implementation of district councils. You can expect to be updated every 6 months, so that you know what's going on in terms of our finances, and you can advise on what their future plans are and whether people have any concerns. That's what you can expect from me: full transparency, full governance, full accountability, and periodic reports as to where we are and where we're going.
All right, now let's that's what you say, but tell the people why they can expect that from you. Do you have a proven record? Like I said, you're in financial services. Tell us what is in your background, in your experience, that we can say, all right, Alwick is saying that, and here's why we believe him, because he has a proven track record. In what way?
Well, that's the nature of my business as a director of investment funds. It's having, so on a monthly or quarterly basis, we are given financial reports, audited financial statements, financial statements to review for purposes of audit. That requires you to look at revenues, expenses, assets. It requires us to then compare those numbers against contracts that are in place with service providers to make sure expenses are being calculated correctly and then correctly reflected in the financials. So, for a very long time in my career, I have, part of my job is to review financials and to make sure, if you look at any set of audited financials, it will say that the directors are responsible for the financial statements. So the record is that this is what I do on a daily basis, is to ensure that financials are in compliance with accounting standards, and then to ensure that the investors are getting statements that fairly reflect the financial position in all material respects. And then when it comes to meetings, yes, we have regular meetings, so that the directors can understand what all the service providers are doing and whether there's any issues with those service providers, to determine whether we need to terminate them or keep them on board. And these meetings on a regular basis. So I am in the practice of having regular meetings to keep clients up to date. I'm in the practice of regularly reviewing financial statements of clients to make sure they're in accordance with accounting principles. So these are the same principles, I will bring to government, come April 30th.
All right. Very good. Well, Alwick, we certainly appreciate you coming on the program and spending a little bit of time with us this morning, talking about the concerns about government's current fiscal position, which is not looking entirely, bright. And it's going to be a challenge, I think, for any government to get in there to figure out potential new streams of revenue. One of the questions when people always say, like, we're going to give free healthcare to our seniors, we're going to do this, we're going to do that during these forums, I always have the question, where is the money coming from? The government just doesn't print money for these projects. And I want to hear, where is that money going to come from? You're either going to move it from somewhere else. And as we can see, government is very adept at moving it from areas, $1 million here, $1 million there, $750 million. You have to give up something and figure out where the money is going to come from, because you can't just materialize money and get these services. So we need to know where these things are coming from, the appropriations, and how it's actually going to be handled. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Alric, do you support and would you work toward revamping WORC and the Labor Department?
Of course. So what I try to tell people is that the Strategic Economic Advisory Council, which was set up during COVID, actually made proposals for this, and the government ignored it. So the proposal from SEAC was to ensure that we ask the private sector, what are your business plans? What type of business do you do? What products do you provide? What services do you provide? What skills are necessary to deliver those services and products. And all that information will be placed on the database. And then the government would then look at where every student was, primary school, high school, college, and look at what they were studying, and also make sure that what they were studying was relevant to the industries that we support in the Cayman Islands. And the government would then communicate to the private sector. We have 2 chefs graduating this year. We have 5 mechanics coming out of vocational school. And then you would just match the education and skills with the jobs in the private sector. That was proposed by the Strategic Economic Advisory Council, and it was never implemented. So we need to have people in there that are going to consult with the private sector and, actually execute the plans in the best interests of the country. But we continue to have people that do plans, do reports, and don't implement.
Okay.
And would you support the 2 departments computer systems being able to communicate with each other? So if you have issues at WRC and the labor department going on at the same time, that it's not a repetitive situation where you're repeating yourself over and over again, explaining situations. They should be able to communicate without all the hassle, the time, the energy that a person has to go through to get anything done, and the time frame it takes to get anything done.
You make a good point. That is just common sense, that they would share information. And as you would see from the government's proposal to make changes to the Immigration Transition Act, there's actually a proposal in there that says that information will be shared between all departments. Now, having said that, there are also concerns under the Data Protection Act that if you are in control of the information, then you'll be deemed the data controller, and then obviously various privacy notices would have to be issued. But essentially, I agree that we should be sharing information so your time is not being wasted going from department to department, submitting the same document multiple times. Saying all of that, but also bear in mind we have to consider what the Data Protection Act says, and then additional responsibilities of each of those agencies. But yes, I agree with you.
Thank you.
All right, my dear. Thanks very much. All right. So some good questions there today. Alric, 3 weeks left in the general election. Tell us a little bit about, you've got some upcoming events, I know, planned. So let's make sure that we get that information out there and shared to the public. So I think we've got one of your videos that we can play now.
It's time for fun, family, and community connection. On Saturday, April 12th, from 1 to 5 p.m., head to Windsor Park for an exciting family fun day hosted by Ulrich Lindsay, candidate for Georgetown South. Kids will enjoy games, laughter, and activities galore, while parents can take the opportunity to speak one-on-one with Ulrich. Share your thoughts and hear his vision for a stronger, smarter, and more resilient Georgetown South. It's all about bringing people together in a relaxed, family-friendly setting. Don't miss this chance to enjoy a fun-filled afternoon and get to know a candidate who's all about smart, hardworking, effective leadership. Come out and be part of the fun.
All right. So tell us about your family fun day that's coming up.
Yeah, and inviting everyone in Georgetown South to come out to the park in Windsor Park on this Saturday, April 12th, from 1 to 5. So we'll have bouncing castles. We'll have snow cones for the kids, and there'll be some games to play as well. So the idea is, you're having all these big formal meetings, and sometimes people don't feel comfortable coming to those meetings. So decided to just do a more relaxed atmosphere where you can just, have some fun, and you can bring your kids as well. That's important for people who may not have a babysitter, for example. You can just come to the event with your child and take the opportunity to just casually chat and, share your concerns.
All right. And then I know you're going to do another one the following week as well.
Yeah, so the following week, so on Monday the 14th, we basically have some private meetings in some homes. So the following week is just basically private meetings in homes where groups of people have requested meetings in their homes rather than to go to public meetings. So that's the plan for next week. But remember that we have Easter holidays coming up as well. So some people may not be available. So next week I've only planned to do the private house meetings while people are making their plans to go on Easter.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, thank you very, very much. And of course, you mentioned these house meetings. If I lived in Georgetown South and I had like a little neighborhood and we wanted to host you, how can people go about having you come into the neighborhood and speak to them and their neighbors?
Well, you can send me a WhatsApp on 926-1688, or you can go to my website at alric4cayman.com, alric4cayman.com. And there's also a button to contact me there. My email is alric4cayman@gmail.com. So just give me a shout and let me know whether you have a group of people in Georgetown South that would like to meet. And the same way that a lot of people are contacting me now to come to their homes, I'll be happy to come and meet you as a group, hear your concerns, and provide solutions.
All right. Thank you very much. Alric Lindsay, candidate for Georgetown South. What number are you on the ballot?
You got to vote number 2 to get me through.
I like it. All right. Good luck. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
All righty. So, he's given you his contact details, his website, his manifesto, he says, is a working document. So you can certainly check that out as well. All right, folks, that's it. Gone way into overtime today. We're going to go ahead and call it a day so you guys can get to work. I see all of you still here, over 400 people. I need y'all to get to work now. Earn that money. I don't care if it's minimum wage or not. Money's money. Put it to good use. And we will catch up. What is tomorrow? Thursday. We'll catch up. We might have a candidate on tomorrow. I'll let you guys know. But I do know we're also going to be having some guests on to talk about the environment when it comes to the port and what their concerns are from an environmental perspective. So they will come on tomorrow's program as well. All right. So thank you guys so very, very much. And we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels. And visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.